And so I said, 12 dead cyclists, all my fault.
Thanks for the laughs, guys. I'll see you next time. Ninja, out.
I can't believe it. The Ryu Hayabusa. Oh, what's wrong, Emily?
It's just, Hayabusa-san is so cool, and he just shows up on PixelTunes Radio all the time. You guys are so lucky.
Oh, I guess I never thought of it like that.
Right? We're so awesome.
Yeah. I wonder what we'd have to do to get Ryu to drop by on the VGM Jukebox sometime.
Hello there. Funny you should ask that, Josh.
Man, that is really unnerving.
You get used to it.
Introducing Ryubi here. Have a wall that needs climbing? A bird that needs slicing? Or an evil demon king determined to take over the world by utilizing the power of a long-sealed god that needs defeating? Have I got the product for you? Take a little of this powder and sprinkle it in your pants. Lo and behold, a wild ninja appears. Ryu Hayabusa, at your service, ready to be snarky and or heroic, just for you.
I don't believe it. Now I can summon you whenever I want? On our show, even?
You got it, kid.
Wow.
Where are you getting all these products anyway? Do we know where he's getting this stuff?
I don't ask questions.
Enjoy the free sample, and don't use too much at once. Side effects include itching and burning. Ninja, out.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I'm gonna test this out right now.
Hello there. Oh, you guys again. Maybe you'd want to wait until you actually needed me?
Hi!
Wow, it really works.
Oh boy, I think you're gonna regret this one, Ryu.
I think he already does.
Look, guys, a ninja's gotta eat, right? I have other jobs to do. Villains to catch, DLC costumes for Dead or Alive to get fitted for. Use that powder only in emergencies, okay?
Yes,
Master
Ryu.
Very good. Now if you'll excuse me, there's a beautiful CIA agent stuck up a tree that needs rescuing. Ninja, out. For hopefully the last time.
Welcome to PixelTunes Radio,
A podcast where we have fun
talking about video games.
and video game music.
I'm Mike,
And I am Ed.
and this is episode 88, Fan Favorites 3.
If we were a DeLorean, we'd be traveling back in time right now.
That's true, we'd be going back to the Wild West.
88 episodes per hour.
We already did Wild West.
Yes. But today is, if you guys haven't already noticed by now, we have some special guests on the show. Josh and Emily, why don't you guys introduce yourself and say hi?
Hey everybody, and welcome to PixelTunes Radio. I am Emily.
And I'm Josh. Each week on our show, we play tunes recommended by you, and this time we're doing the same thing, I guess.
But sometimes we do it on a different show.
That's what it is.
Awesome. We are so glad to have you guys on the show. This has kind of been a long time coming. We've been planning this episode for quite a while.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're excited.
Oh yeah.
We talked about this a little bit last episode, so we were going to do another fan favorites. I was chatting with Emily, and she's like, well, why don't we get together and do it? So we got the call out on both podcasts to have fans of both shows put in some submissions, and a ton of you guys put in submissions for us. So we've got, 12 awesome tracks to play.
Yes.
With a lot of testimonials. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of discussion. It's going to be cool.
One nice thing about the picks, so we did have a couple extra picks that we didn't end up choosing for this show, but the good news is that your pick is going to be heard, so it'll actually be played on Video Game Music Jukebox.
Yes.
So they will kind of take these tracks and mosey them on over to their podcast.
Going to give them a little doggy bag
Yeah.
to take home. Little wet nap
Yeah.
in there with some
It's
VGM
just-
tracks.
Oh, very fancy.
Those tracks were so good that they couldn't be on PixelTunes
Exactly.
Radio.
It's just
That's-
too rich for our blood.
Yeah. So why don't we jump into PixelChat, which is our little segment where we take questions from our listeners. So the first question is from Cam Chiles, and he asks, what are the best qualities of your favorite beat-em-ups? In other words, what do you think makes your favorites so good?
Let's let our guests have first crack at this one. What do you guys think, Josh and Emily?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with the sound effect of the punching. That's very important. Nice little combos that are kind of easy to get into, but have some nuance to them so you know why a certain combo is happening. And also you should be able to throw one guy into like a million guys and watch them all tumble like dominoes.
Yes. Yes, you are a beat-em-up connoisseur, I can tell.
Love them.
How about you, Em?
I think that I really like, kind of like what Josh is saying, I like some kind of precision and skill required. I'm not as into beat 'em up games that just kind of require you to wail on a random enemy. I like there to be some kind of pattern or rhythm that I can get into to pull something off. And I also really like, I know this is fairly standard, but I really like differences between the characters that you pick, but not so much in special moves, but more like how fast they are, how hard they hit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, if it has Ninja Turtles in.
Yes.
That's an immediate prerequisite
Yes.
for an awesome beat-em-up.
I'm going to say yellow life bar.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That
need
means
a yellow
Capcom,
life bar.
basically.
Yeah. No, I think that when it comes to beat 'em ups, for me, like, fun and flashy is the way to go. So if you have really top-notch character design and really fun-looking characters, it makes the game all the more better. Everything else usually falls into place on its own, but if you've got a good like combo type system or good like special moves, that's all pretty standard for beat 'em ups. But if your characters are kind of boring, you're not really as into it.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you there. I have there's one little thing that I love about some beat-em-ups. I think like the Battletoads on the NES does this really well. Whenever there's a really hard hit, like the whole screen just pauses like for a split, like 1 or 2 frames.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it just makes that hit feel so chunky and effective, and I love when games have that in it. I also love games where you're able to pick guys up and walk around with them and then kind of choose what you want to do. Like you can walk over to a big bunch of guys and just throw them and knock them all over bowling style.
Or like Final Fight, when you pick up the character when you're playing as Hagar.
Yeah.
And you just kind of move them over to
Right.
other characters and do the pile driver.
Or you can jump and then do the jumping
Yeah,
power drive.
yeah.
Like just varied options, like almost like a branching tree of options you have once you start those first initial punches and kicks, what you can do with the enemy.
Right.
And speaking of branching, I love branching paths in beat 'em ups too, because that builds in replay value. You can go
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
play through it different ways every single time you do it. So those are my favorites.
What about our next question?
All right, next question is from longtime VGM Jukebox requester, Mixxmaster. He says, hello, Ed and Mike. Love me some VGM with the banter. And if this is being read on the show with Josh and Emily. Hi, Josh and Emily.
Hi, Mixxmaster.
Hey.
Thank you for playing my tracks on VGM Jukebox. Love the show. Now, on to my question. In your opinion, what single part of a track helps make it a good track? May it be drums, bass, rhythm, tempo, etc. One more question. I know the island thing has been used before, haha. If you were stranded on an island till the end of days, what one food and one drink would you pick to have with you? Mixxmaster out. So 2 questions.
Whoa.
What part of a track is your favorite part of the track? And secondly, what food and drink would you bring on an island if it's the only thing you could eat and drink for the rest of your life?
Oh boy, this what part of the track thing is something that Josh and I talk about maybe every 3rd episode, I feel.
Yes, definitely.
I kind of have an answer, brewing. I'm going to try to work it out.
Go for it.
I think my favorite part of VGM music in general is when you hear the interplay between sort of like a limited voicing and then the way that they use the 3 or 4 voices that they have to create the illusion of chords and more stuff going on than is really there. That's my favorite part of VGM composition in general. I like the other stuff, you know, I like a good rocker or I like a good jam, but I think that's why I like those jazzy, golfy tracks so much, is because they're kind of playing with your perception of music and the fullness of the chords. Actually, and Super Mario Brothers, the first Super Mario Brothers song, is a great example of that. It feels melodic, but also kind of like impactful and full at the same time.
For sure. And a lot of those Western composers also use arpeggios to that same effect too, to make it sound like there's many more than 2 pulse channels on that one triangle channel going on the NES. What about you, Emily?
I have a difficult time with questions like this that ask for the one composer or the one part because I can't really answer it, but I will say this. A thing that I like very much in video game music is when they throw in a weird sound effect and mix it into the tune. So whether it's a hand clap or like an industrial metal sound in the percussion section, for some reason I always really enjoy that. So I'm going to kind of cheese my way out of this question and give you that as my answer.
It's a good answer.
As an underappreciated, perhaps, part of VGM music.
Sounds like you would really be a big fan of the Global Gladiators soundtrack.
Yeah. Awesome.
You did it. I'm going to say melody. Melody is a huge part of my listening experience, so if the melody sucks, I'm out. There's, of course, always exceptions to the rule, so I'm going to kind of agree with you, Emily, that you can't really say, oh, this one specific thing is something that, trumps everything, but, I will say that for a song to be completely good, you can't have like terrible melody and then like amazing drums or like really amazing bass lines, but like crap,
Right.
lead lines
Right.
or harmonies. So that's kind of what I would say. It all has to be a complete package, but like what I look for personally is definitely melody.
That's funny, and that's probably why you and I agree not so much on a lot of the tracks that we pick, because my favorite part of a track is groove, so I really appreciate bass lines and percussion together. The sound of the percussion kit, I think, makes a big difference on whether or not I like a track. I love a big, heavy snare hit, with a very deep bass. Tracks that have that kind of sound to it, I'm immediately drawn to, and songs that have a lot of really nice melody, but maybe not so much in the way of groove or percussion. They can grow on me, but I'm not always a fan of them when I first hear them. So I really go for that bass and drums part first.
I'm totally a groove person as well. I can also tell how much I enjoy a song sometimes, even if I haven't consciously gotten there yet, by what dance move I'm involuntarily doing to the track. I started naming them because certain tracks just make me do these certain heavy quotes dance moves, and I go, oh, I must really like this one.
That's really funny.
Oh, and the one food and one drink that you would pick.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna go beer and sushi, I guess.
Beer and sushi. Okay.
I mean,
That works for me.
I might need to get drunk and just enjoy the finer things in life if I'm trapped alone on an island.
I feel like that's not going to be a good combo for you.
If that's all you eat?
If that's all you eat.
Oh, the mercury?
The mercury combined with the beer. So you're just going to be constantly like going out of your mind insane from mercury. And then you'll be drunk too. So you'll just be like, hey, where are the white women at?
And probably have scurvy.
Like no one's around. You're like imagining like people are there talking to them. Like, hey Bob, what's going on? You want some sushi?
That could be, an improved situation over what's actually happening on that island if there's no one else there.
Yeah.
That's true. You'll at least die happy and surrounded by loved ones? ?
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting point. He did not say deserted island. He just said an island.
True. This is very true.
Can't believe you didn't pick pickles and cheese.
You are stranded there, so is this like you just go to Hawaii but you don't have enough money to get back to the States or something?
Maybe it's like Lost.
I feel like this answer would basically be, all right, what palette of something do you want dropped off with you?
Yeah.
So,
Like
all right. What about you, Emily?
Interestingly, I also answer sushi, but I'm going to go with tea instead, specifically kukicha tea. It's my favorite. It's made from twigs. Just saying.
Ooh, okay then.
Twig tea.
Twig tea.
I mean, you might be able to make your own on that island, though.
That's what I was going to say. If you ever run out, you can just go hunt down foliage.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
sure.
Yeah, just forage for some branches. Yeah.
I'm gonna have a quick death, so I'm gonna say Doritos and Mountain Dew as a traditional gamer. That'll just be my diet, and I'll just die.
Oh, man.
Mike has a different goal in this video game scenario.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna die as quick as possible, so I don't have to stay on the island anymore.
Would it be that Game Fuel Mountain Dew or whatever?
I'm gonna say probably Baja Blast Mountain Dew from
Baja
Taco
Blast.
Bell.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe I'll change my answer to Taco Bell.
See, I was gonna do Taco Bell.
Yeah. Just have an actual Taco Bell on the island.
Because then you have all your main ingredients there. You got your protein from your meat, you got your vegetables, you got your dairy. I mean, technically,
you got your Mountain Dew.
pretty healthy, so you could do Taco Bell.
Okay, all right.
Can you just imagine being that person who finds you and rescues you on this deserted island, and there's just a Taco Bell in the middle of it?
Yeah,
And
I
they're
would
like,
just be
"What is this?"
400 pounds waiting in a raft. Like breaking.
You're gonna be like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
My Crunchwrap Supremes. You're just in a raft made of Crunchwrap Supremes.
Yeah.
And then I would pick coffee as my drink because coffee. Going to the end of days without coffee would probably not be very healthy for me.
True.
Yes.
You'd be going mad.
Yeah. Caffeine, crazy. That'd be fun.
And then I guess we have one more question from Alex Messenger.
Yep.
And it's an audio question.
It is.
Let's give it a listen.
Hey guys, the messenger here, and for my PixelChat question, I want to ask you guys, is there any hobbies or activities that you like to do outside of gaming and VGM podcasting?
Hobbies, and activities. I'm gonna have to think of this one.
Can I just say that this made me turn inward and think, oh man, I do almost nothing else right now.
That's the first thing I thought of too. I was like, wait a minute, what do I do outside of video game related activities?
I have 2 bands that I'm in. I play music in, and I also like to go jogging whenever I can. Do I have another thing? I like to listen to podcasts a whole lot. Does
You build Gunpla.
I haven't been building Gunpla lately. I need to. I told myself that I wouldn't build another Gunpla until I got an interview for a job. I have a job, but I'm trying to, upgrade my job. And then once I do that, I'm going to reward myself with a Gundam building experience.
Awesome.
Trying to level up.
Yeah. And Pokemon Go, right? I mean, you kind of can consider that a hobby.
You could kind of consider that not a video game. That's true. I would pair my Pokemon Go experience with my podcasting listening experience. It's like my favorite way to listen to podcasts. Just walking around, catching Pokemon, fighting the gyms. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. What about you, Emily?
I read a lot of books. I think that's the only thing I can add to this. Everything else that I do is somehow related to video games, so I kind of crossed them off as not valid answers. But yeah, I read a lot of books. I like to read a lot of nonfiction. I haven't been reading as much this year as I would like, but right now I'm reading this book called A Space Traveler's Guide to the Solar System, which is really cool. I didn't know what I was getting into when I got it, but basically it's like a factoid trip through the solar system where you kind of go by planets, and the author is just like, oh, by the way, here's all the different layers of this planet, and here's this and that, and here's what it would be like if you walked on it. And it's just, I love it. It makes my brain feel good.
That's cool.
I do watch the occasional sport.
No!
Yeah, believe it or not. I'm in the middle of a number of books, both fiction and nonfiction, but and also manga and anime, graphic novels, that sort of thing. So I do a bit of that. I play drums. I don't play drums often because I don't have a set, but
He plays drums when he can find them.
Do you just go to your friends' houses and just use their drum sets?
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, I don't have that many friends locally that do have drum sets, but whenever I come across a drum set that I can actually sit down and play, I'll just kind of jump on.
Regardless of where it is.
Yeah,
Just knocks on random neighbors' houses.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Excuse me, do you have a drum set? Sometimes I'll, go to a music store and just jam out on drums, that sort of thing. So
I just have to say that right now I am having this image of you in that scene from Wayne's World when Garth kind of sits down at that little drum set and then he starts playing and then the lights come on and everything, and yeah, that's you.
exactly, that is exactly what happens.
You
Like in his own little world. I play a little bit. All right. Not many people know this about me, but I am a league bowler. So that's one of my hobbies. I've been bowling for almost 15 years now, at least once a week. So that's one of my hobbies. I also run like Josh does, just getting back into that after taking a while off.
Does anybody ever chase you while you're running and say what are you running away from?
Because it's on a treadmill, it would be really easy to catch me.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. Unless they are also on the treadmill, in which case they would never catch me.
Mike, I thought you were going to say, do people follow you and go, are you Ed of PixelTunes Radio?
Yes, always.
That's really about it. I guess you could consider coffee a hobby.
No, that's not a hobby.
I think I do that enough to consider it a hobby.
No.
How many kinds of coffee do you have in your kitchen right now?
At least 6.
That's a hobby. That's a lot.
Yeah. My wife works for Starbucks, so we have a lot of coffee. So, yeah.
We're only allowed one.
But we brew it different ways, and we talk about it when we drink it, kind of like you would do wine. We do like coffee taste tests and stuff. So yeah, I would consider that a hobby.
How many methods of making coffee do you have available to you in your house?
Well, there's the drip, there's the percolator, there's the Keurig. We have French press, cold brew. I think that's it. Yeah, so that's like 5 or 6 different ways to brew it.
Wait, do you have a special cold brew machine or something like that?
No, but they're cold brew packets, made for packets that Starbucks makes, made for cold brew. So
welcome to Coffee Tunes Radio.
Yeah, basically. Caffeine Tunes Radio.
Caffeine Tunes Radio.
That works.
All right, let's move into the show. So, Fan Favorites 3, you guys picked some great tracks, and we're going to get right into it. So, Devilish is the name of the game. This came out on the Sega Genesis in 1991. The stage track is called Stage 7 Prairie, and it's by Hitoshi Sakamoto.
Let's hit it. And we're back. That was Devilish, released on the Genesis in 1991. That was Stage 7 Prairie, composed by Hitoshi Sakamoto, one of the greats.
Oh my god, this track. Wow.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Sakamoto's definitely a master of FM.
Oh my goodness.
For sure. What'd you guys think?
Emily? Emily liked it.
Really good. The things that I liked the most about this track, that bass line that goes Boo-doo-doo. That's so good.
Oh, okay.
Slides down the frets.
And also, I also really like it whenever those drums show up that go booga-da-dooga-da-booga-da-dooga-da.
How do you spell that? B-O-G-G?
It's like
booga-da-dooga-da.
booga-da-dooga-da-dooga-da-dooga-da. But there are little accents over it so that you know when you're supposed to change in pitch. Because it's not just a straight booga-da-dooga-da. It's a
booga-da-dooga-da part.
B-A-H, boogada, boogada.
Right, little different parts are capitalized.
Right.
Yeah, I like the booga-da-dooga-das too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I will say that this sounds like something out of an 80s horror movie. Like, it has that
Crystal
Michael
Lake
Myers
feel,
piano. You know, the up and down kind of melodies. I love that type of stuff. But then that bass line is just absolutely killer. So this, for whatever reason, definitely to me sounds like something out of an 80s horror flick.
Yeah, I like the sound of it a lot. It sounds very beautifully designed from a sonic level. It's kind of the opposite of what I was talking about when I said what I like about VGM music, I think. When I was talking about, like, notes that become jazzy or whatever by playing them together. But because this one does have a repeating arpeggio and a pretty consistent kind of a chord tone to me, but I do like the part where the chord starts going down while the arpeggio stays the same, and it kind of gives you a mixed emotion sensation on that. I like that a lot.
It's like parts are getting happy, but other parts are getting kind of sad at the same time.
Yeah. And it's happening right now for me. It's cool. And then I do like imagining 80s horror movies on top of it. That made me appreciate it on a different level, actually. And it wouldn't even have to be like a horror situation, just like any tense movie. Like just maybe a truck driver who's also a killer or something like that, you know?
Or just, I get a prevailing sense of running out of time from this.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not even murder or death, it's just, this needs to get done in this amount of time, and only you, the brooding anti-hero in the trench coat walking down the street in the rain, can solve this.
So specific.
And what's funny is that the song is called Prairie. Like, I don't picture a prairie at all when I listen to this track.
So we won't talk too much about Hitoshi Sakamoto just because we play him pretty often. Just to give you 5 random games that he has done. He did Radiant Silver Gun in 1998. He did Vagrant Story in 2000. He did Tekken 6 in 2009 with multiple other composers. And he did, let's go Grim Grimoire in 2007 with Basic Escape. So
Basic Escape is his audio company. Didn't he do Midnight Resistance?
He arranged
it for the Genesis.
Resistance. Yeah,
Flutter Power track.
Yeah, he just does some really legendary things with the Genesis.
Yeah.
FM
Well, he's one of those guys that wrote his own sound driver, just like Yuzo Koshiro did. So that's why you get these very unique tones from the system that songs kind of sound unlike anything you hear on other games.
Yeah, but he's still working today.
Oh, yeah.
The dude constantly putting out soundtracks, so he's like
he
a machine.
He also did Magical Chase for the TurboGrafx 16, which I just have to mention specifically because it's so good.
Yes.
Oh,
I haven't heard
so
that. I have to go
good.
check
If
that
you
out.
want extremely layered VGM with texture, that should have been my answer for the thing that's most important to a VGM track for me, texture.
Texture.
Yeah. No, that's I'm with you on that. That's true.
Awesome.
So why don't we read the testimonial?
Go right ahead.
The person who picked it. So it was Nathan Daniels, also known as Utopia Nemo, and he said, "I was driving down the street a few weeks ago, figuring out how to use my new VGM app, Modizer, and scanning through Hitoshi Sakamoto tracks. Now, I love good Genesis tunes, and I love Hitoshi Sakamoto compositions, but when this track came on, I literally started shouting, oh my freaking gosh, at the top of my lungs.
How PG?
Extolling the sheer beastliness of Sakamoto Gami. Then I Skyped Brian from Pixelated Audio while driving and jokingly demanded that he play the song immediately. As it turns out, he has already played the song on his show, no less. But it deserves to be played again. It's dark and aggressive and does a few things I don't hear often on the YM2612. Firstly, Sakamoto's put in some arena rock sounding drum rolls in there. I can almost hear a stadium of aggro metalhead Japanese youth cheering in response. Secondly, after the drums drop out, there's this sinister fat low-end synth pad that growls around at the bottom of the frequency spectrum. Lastly, it just exudes a particular kind of dark intensity that I don't think I've heard in any Mega Drive composition yet. The song is short and it's not overly complicated, but man does it rock. And that's why you're hopefully listening to it right now, which we did. So
yes.
Thank you for your pick.
Yeah, Utopia Nemo also likes the buggada-duggada-buggada-duggadas.
I will say the track doesn't really change that much throughout the process. Like before it even rolls back to the beginning during the loop, it still pretty much stays the same from the beginning. There's not a lot of change throughout the track, which is strange because normally Sakamoto's tracks generally do have quite a bit of change throughout them, and so I didn't really get that as much with this track, but I think this track is more about building tension than anything.
Yeah, I mean, Devilish is kind of like a adventure pinball game where you kind of like knock your ball
Fury.
up. Right, so the levels you're going to be on one screen for a long time, so I think he didn't really develop his tracks that much in terms of emotion because you're kind of going to be looking at a static picture the whole time. So maybe that was a conscious decision not to go too far with that.
Hey, and speaking of building tension, I'm a little bit concerned that Utopia Nemo was Skyping while driving.
I know, right?
But I guess this track is worth taking one's life into their own hands to share the glory of VGM.
Well, hopefully it was not a video call and he was just doing the audio.
I just picture him doing all kinds of wacky, crazy stuff while driving.
Holding a coffee and eating French fries and on Skype.
Shaving while eating French fries. That sounds like a weird combo.
Changing his kid's diaper.
Yeah.
Coffee is just pouring out of his mouth as he's screaming, "Oh my freaking gosh."
Changing his own diaper.
Wow.
While eating French fries and shaving.
We've all had that moment, though, right? We've had that moment where you just...
Yeah. No, we've totally all, changed our diapers, our own diapers, while shaving our faces.
Hey, I do have a long drive to work, so, things happen.
You could dip the French fry in the shaving cream, add some condiments. Delicious.
I'm so glad that we've all shared this experience. I feel less alone now.
Yes. Let's move on to our next track. What do we got, Ed?
Oh, next up is Venture Kid. This came out for iOS last year, 2016. The track is called Stage 2 City, and it's by Matt Creamer, otherwise known as Norin Rad.
Welcome back. That was Venture Kid, Stage 2 City by Matt Creamer and Norin Rad for the iOS, released in 2016. This came to us from Matt Waller, and Matt Waller says, "The indie movement has brought back much of what many longtime gamers have yearned for whenever they fire up a console. It's hard to say whether my love of old school games is driven more by nostalgia or the emphasis on strong gameplay, compensating for the lack of most everything else. By stripping a game down to its most basic elements, the developers are forced to think more creatively or hone their product's strengths to make the game saleable. I think the same can be said of a chiptune score. With the limited amount of sounds available to them, the artists must focus more on the basics of composition, strong melodies and harmonies and rhythm. That brings me to my submission from Venture Kid. The developers make very little attempt to hide its inspiration, which, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the best templates to follow as far as gameplay goes, but I'll leave all that talk to the hosts. The score is varied and generally pretty strong, but the standout for me has to be Stage 2 City. This catchy track motors along with an intensity akin to something from Shatterhand. While it is mildly repetitive, I have rarely found it tiring to listen to. It's become one of my go-to running tunes, and I'm hoping that, in time, it will enable me to leap 3 times my height and fire energy pellets from my hands."
Yes.
This song might actually enable you to do that.
Oh my god, this song and soundtrack. Oh, wow. My face exploded. My face melted, then exploded on the ground.
Oh.
It was that good.
That's where that pothole came from.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, thank you, because this is definitely going on my phone, in my playlist. I bought the soundtrack on Nor and Rad's website. Like I just went and because you could buy it part of like a Bandcamp style soundtrack.
So do you like this song?
No, absolutely worst song ever. 0 out of 10. No, it's great. I mean, you mentioned Shatterhand. You've got these like really fantastic layers that it just makes you want to go back and listen to the song over and over and over again. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts regarding Emily and I's fascination with putting a track on and letting it loop all day. Yeah. So Emily and I are in sync with that one because this soundtrack is definitely it's going to be one of those soundtracks where I just let it loop and I'll just listen. I'll find like one track in particular. And it'll probably end up being this track, and I'll just loop it for like hours on my way back and forth on my drive back and forth home. So, thank you.
And I think there's something really special about tracks like this because Matt even noted that it's kind of repetitive, but it never gets old. There's something about tracks like this where by the time you come around to kind of lap the loop, you just feel like you've got more momentum to go into it again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the fact that it's got more of a progressive time signature. It's repetitive, but because of that weird time signature and then that it changes time signatures once in a while, it keeps feeling fresh because the accents are always on like different parts of the beat. And so it almost feels like it's speaking to you rather than just kind of droning on with a standard rhythm. And also it's got that kind of like wall of sound feel that a lot of modern chiptune does where there aren't any rests. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And so I couldn't even like the first couple listens tell where the loop was in the song after a while.
That's okay. Embrace that.
Yeah, no, I know. It's good. It's good. It's very good.
Yeah, just put it on all day and just keep looking for that loop, Ed,
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So what did you think, Josh?
Well, I just want to say about this testimonial, I think Matt Waller and I are very simpatico in how we like to imagine things during our run. I like how he's imagining himself shooting fire energy pellets from his hands while he runs. But I was thinking, AR technology is getting up there. Pokemon Go is fun because it like adds a game element to your walking around. But in a few years, we could have a run element to an AR game and just have a bunch of people running around with their arms sticking out, firing imaginary energy pellets from their hand. And that's the kind of future I want to live in. Maybe jumping over some logs that are rolling towards you.
3 times your height jumps.
I don't think the AR technology will be able to achieve that because the background should be based on the real world.
Oh, let me dream.
I'm not interested in that dream. It's got to be a real body. I like the song a lot. I have a question for you guys, actually. Listening to it, is there anything that stands out to you as actually being impossible or unlikely to actually exist on one of those old consoles? Specifically, probably, I think Game Boy. This one sounds most like Game Boy to me. But is there any telling features that so you know it's not?
I think you're saying that because of the more abrasive sounding, like rougher, deeper melodies that are present. The tone is very dark sounding. It's not cheery like a Mega Man song, but it uses melodies that you could really see in a Mega Man song. So I think that has a lot to do with tone. Norrin Rad, the composer, also known as Matt Creamer, he has worked on a few games. He is probably best known for Retro City Rampage. He composed a lot of the music in that with Jake Kaufman and Freaky DNA. So, they kind of all shared composition styles there, and so he's probably best known for that. He also did Swap Heroes and Slayin', as well as, of course, Venture Kid, Matchland, and Treasure Buster. So he's done a bunch of games in a bunch of different styles, but if you listen to the tracks on Retro City Rampage that Norrin Rad did, he uses a very specific, very Konami-sounding style when it comes to the music. So a lot of that comes off as a little bit more abrasive and not as cheery and happy as Mega Man stuff.
I can answer your question pretty faithfully here. That's actually a little blurb that he has at the bottom of his Bandcamp page where you can download the soundtrack. He says, it is incredible that even after that much time of actively studying this art form, I'm still learning new things about how the original NES soundtracks were made and adding those techniques to my own arsenal. This soundtrack represents the first NES soundtrack I have ever made where I'm fully utilizing NES detuning, which is to say a slight offset in the tuning between both square waves that creates a subtle but luscious sheen. I'm once again using ModPlug to create my own brand of authentic NES music, which did make adding new techniques much more difficult if I wanted to keep an authentic sound. So he's using NES samples or instruments taken directly from an NES, but using them in a Amiga Tracker style format program.
I'm just really glad that we're bringing this up and that there's that actual note on the composer's page, because when I listened to this track for the first time, that was the first thing I thought of was, oh wow, this is an indie game, but it actually sounds like this could exist on an NES, because a lot of indie games will mix the kind of retro elements with newer things, or they'll add extra channels to give you like the super original Nintendo that you never had, like 2 Nintendos going at the same time. And I liked that this was really pure, and I just thought that was very, very cool.
Yeah, I was almost sure myself, that he used like Famitracker or some sort of program that would make an authentic, NES sound that you could actually play on a real NES. But Josh figured it out. It was just a little bit different enough to not be an actual NES.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Well, he said he wanted to emulate the NES as much as he could using software that he was better at using, I guess.
Mm-hmm. This is amazing. It needs to. I want to play the game. I haven't played.
The game is fun. I downloaded it this morning, and I even got both my kids. We were all 3 of us were playing it simultaneously this morning. It's a lot of fun.
It just needs to come out on handheld or console, like as a downloadable game, and I'll be all about that Venture Kid.
I think it's on Greenlight on Steam. So
yeah, it'll eventually come to console.
Who knows?
And if it doesn't, I'll just listen to the soundtrack and pretend I'm playing the game.
Right on.
Yeah, while you run around your neighborhood, having your own venture
kid.
Having your own venture kit.
You like carve open the top of a venture kit and climb inside and shrink yourself down.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I don't.
Mike is the venture kid.
Yes. All right, so let's move into our next track, which is Neketsu Oyako, and that's on the Saturn and the PlayStation. In 1994 was the release. This is Mega City Tokyo 2064 Outer City Road, which is the name of the track, and it's by Hyakutaru Tsukumo. Let's give it a little listen.
Yo, what's going on, PixelTunes and Jukebox? I chose the track Outer City Road from a beat-em-up called Neketsu Oyako by Technosoft for the Sega Saturn. The soundtrack is composed by Hyakutaru Tsukumo, who is known for his excellent work on Thunder Force 5. As for the song in question, it's an awesome first stage pump-up track. I especially enjoy the breakdown around the 35-second mark, and just the energy of the song itself, really. Music doesn't have to be complex to sound good, and I think by comparison that's probably why this soundtrack isn't as crazy as Tsukumo's other joints. For lack of a better word, this OST exerts more of a passive-aggressive style, and sounds like a lost Capcom game. There is a PS1 port of the game which contains the same songs, but are compressed with the sound driver. The game is pretty awesome. I highly recommend it if you're a beat 'em up fan. And I mean, it's Technosoft, so you don't have anything to lose. Thanks for the chance to show off an awesome track, and I love the show, so keep going on, headstrong, okay?
All right, Marlon, thank you for that. That was Neketsu Oyako for this was the Saturn version of the track, but it also came out on the PlayStation in 1994. That was Mega City Tokyo 2064 Outer City Road by Hyokutaro Tsukomo. Great little track. He definitely, he said this sounds like a Lost Capcom soundtrack. I definitely hear that. It feels like Mega Man X style stuff going on there. Maybe with a little bit more lower end than on the SNES, but definitely that same style.
Definitely very Capcom, very like arcadey style action beat 'em up track. So I thought that the sound that they were going for really worked for it. It's just a really awesome high energy track. I was also actually going to say Zuntata. It sounds a lot like the kind of like higher end Zuntata tracks that you would hear in some of their games. So
I definitely feel that too.
Yeah.
What'd you think, Emily?
I think that the intensity just intensified on this podcast set list. I love that we brought up Thunder Force because this song sounds so shmuppy to me. It's actually kind of difficult for me to think about it as a backdrop to a beat 'em up, so I'm kind of interested to have that experience now. I feel like I'm in a spaceship.
Schmuppy is a good word. I think that needs to be used.
Schmuppy.
I did play the game this morning, and there is a little bit of a disconnect between the music and the song doesn't sound, like tough.
Right.
Okay.
As tough as you would get in Final Fight or something like that. It feels more slick. So yeah, I kind of agree with you there.
It's Twin Bee that has the boxing gloves, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe that's what's going on here. It's like a shmup beat 'em up, a shmup 'em up.
Shmup 'em up.
A shmup 'em
Yes.
up.
Shmuppity 'em up. Shmuppity 'em up.
That's all I wanted to say.
Shmuppity-
Go ahead, Josh.
Shoot 'em up. Shmuppity ups.
This just sounds like some Japanese guy playing electric guitar. I don't know. It doesn't sound like very much to me, I guess.
That's it. You're off the show.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to pick you up and we're going to toss you into a bunch of other dudes.
Yes.
Well, I like songs like this, but it's not VGM-y that much for me. I can see how it is actually VGM-y, but it just sounds like just random music, kind of, with just like a Japanese tint to it.
Okay.
I can feel where you're coming from there. I mean, it's not as like rockin' as Thunder Force is. So it's kind of like Thunder Force late.
It sounds like something out of like a Sega CD game.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Like something out of
Like Lords of Thunder.
Lords of Thunder. Yeah.
But even less so. But it's more synthy than that.
Yeah.
It's funny because I originally listened to the PlayStation version of this track when I was trying to get music for the show, and he's right. It's compressed. It's all sequenced within the game. It's not Redbook audio like on the Saturn.
Yeah.
It sounds like every instrument was taken and turned into like a $5 children's toy that you would find at a toy store. Because everything is just flat and tinny. I was like, this is awful. Why would you suggest something like this? And then I heard the Redbook audio version, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a heck of a lot better.
Right.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, don't get the PlayStation version of the soundtrack if you're looking for it. Definitely.
Okay. I was gonna suggest it sounds like Bulk Slash, the soundtrack for that on the Saturn.
I can see that for sure.
Because it's got the those awesome
Synth
high-end guitars
yeah.
and hard rocking tracks. So it doesn't necessarily fit with what's going on, but
I really do like that part where it's like it breaks down into that doom cha cha doom. It changes that beat right there. That part's pretty awesome.
yeah.
And it kind of has like a 80s cartoon sound to it, the melody, I think. So it's pretty cool.
So because I can't let the shmup thing go, I can tell you exactly what level this would be. This would play in the level after you have beaten the 4 stages that you see when you can first play the game, and you've now unlocked the enemy base, and this is the stage when you are traveling to the enemy base. This is the there's no turning back now track.
Yeah, it's got that kind of heroic driving feel to it, definitely.
Yeah.
Like after those first initial stages in like Elemental Master where you go up against the really big guys.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys are right though. I cannot really see the beat 'em up that this is supposed to be. It's all about a spaceship, explosions.
But maybe this is going to be the new standard for what I love in a beat 'em up. I'm gonna go have to see how this mashes together and see if this is everything I didn't know I needed, you know?
Hey, do you think there could be like a beat 'em up shmup?
A shmup 'em up.
Shmup 'em up?
Shmup.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, that would be really awesome. You fly, but then you have to get near enemies and punch them with your ship.
I think it'd be
combos.
No, I think it'd be cool if it was like a Guardian Legend, the NES game.
So there's some like side-scrolling levels and then some shoot 'em up levels.
Yeah. Or like Sigma Star Saga, except without the RPG elements. Instead, like, you know, you're in a shmup and then, you know, you get to a certain part in the shmup and then your character transforms into like a normal, like, you know, side-scrolling beat 'em up kind of guy.
We played a Guardian Legend track on a previous show, and we linked to a review from somebody else during that time. So that's probably where we got it from.
Yeah, unless you're thinking of Worm.
No, it wasn't
Usually
Worm.
I'm thinking of Worm, but... Emily, speaking of the Worm, what's your dance move for this one?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a name for this one. Some of them aren't weird enough to have names, but I've just been sitting here kind of like leaning back in my chair with one arm slung over the back and just like bobbing my head to it. So this is like, I don't know.
Maybe the shmup bob. The shmob.
Yeah, something like that.
Shmup bob.
Or the shmup lounge.
I'm picturing some sort of like Sailor Moon twirl with like little stars everywhere.
This is a transformation sequence tune. That kind of works. That could work.
Yeah, that does work.
Yeah.
She holds up her hand in the air, but instead of like nail polish getting put on her hand, instead it's like little miniaturized like consoles.
Yeah, or like
an NES gets jammed in her fingers. She's like, wow.
I put my hand up in the air, and then all of a sudden it's just like Sega Genesis controller. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
cartridge.
then brass knuckles in the other one.
Cartridges go into her spine.
Yes. Now it's like something out of Aeon Flux.
Oh, man.
All right, let's move on to our next track. This is from Nights into Dreams on the Sega Saturn. It came out in 1996. And this track is A Message from Night Topia. And this is by Naofumi Hataya, Tomoko Sasaki, and Fumiya Kumatani.
And we're back. That was Message from Night Topia from Nights into Dreams, released on the Saturn in 1996, composed by Naofumi Hataya, Tomoko Sasaki, and Fumie Kumatani. This one was requested by Zach Nichols, and so let's hear what Zach had to say. He says, "Hey, this is Zach, a crossover from the LMH VGM Jukebox line of fandom, and let me say it's really cool that we have a fandom. I never thought of. I'm like kind of impressed now.
Right?
Thanks for." He says, "Thanks for doing this special episode. In the making of video, Takashi Iizuka calls Nights into Dreams a platformer without the platform. And that's such a great way to describe the game, because what does that even mean? Well, it means that it's kind of like Sonic, but your character can fly. And it's really fun in the same way Sonic is. Momentum can be your friend or enemy, and paths will fork and align, all in the quest to regain trapped ideas manifested as glowing orbs. But the term platformer without the platform also hints at Nights break with convention. Yes, Nights is wonderfully strange and difficult to classify, which is perfect because it takes place in a dream. For instance, an interesting break with convention in Nights happens when time is running out. Instead of the music speeding up or adding a ticking clock sound, an ambient on the verge of discordant texture swells until it overtakes the song. If it makes the player anxious, it's a sleepy kind of anxiety. Message from Night Topia plays during the score recap and propels the player into the next challenge in the same way that certain 90s jams can propel skaters around a roller rink. Maybe part of what makes the soundtrack memorable is that it has a motif that threads through most of the tunes, including Message from Night Topia. It's those first 6 notes of the melody. I appreciate you folks taking time to make a fun crossover episode. Thanks so much! Well, thank you, Zach, because this is a really cool track.
This is a very Euro disco kind of style for the track.
Yeah, which is, you said roller rink, and like, that brought those memories right to my
Yep, that's exactly
my mind,
what I thought of.
What'd you guys think?
I just want to double up on Zach's thanks to be directed towards you guys for hosting us today.
Aw, thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys have a very, I mean, I like our bar, but this is very cozy.
Down here in the
Group
PixelTunes
hug.
dungeon
You
basement.
must have gotten these reupholstered.
Yeah.
And I also feel like we should give a special thanks to Josh for getting up, like, as the sun comes up to record with us this morning, because he's 3 hours off of all of us. We're all here on the East Coast, and he's, like, bleary-eyed trying to suck down as much coffee as he can over in California, so...
While we're thanking the whole world, I want to thank a guy by the name of Earl that I know.
Not again. I gotta meet this Earl at some point. Anyhow, so yeah, I mean this track and this whole game is really cool. That da 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 da, like that's the motif that you hear throughout all of the Nights into Dreams music. And so what they do is they just take that melody and put this really fun kind of house Euro beat behind it, and it works really well.
But it's super chill at the same time. I think it's the acoustic guitar that's doing it for me, but it doesn't feel like a dance track. It feels like a great study track, though.
I can see that.
I don't get that at all, but that's just me.
Just, it feels good. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it does feel good.
Yeah.
I don't study to music, so this would probably distract me to no end, but
It's a lot more lighthearted, and the synths are a lot like brighter and cheerier.
Yeah.
So I think, but it's also got a very laid back beat. It's not too busy.
Yeah.
So it's
good
very,
for passively listening.
It's very dreamlike.
Yeah.
At points, which really fits with obviously with Nights into Dreams. I don't know, this game I just couldn't get into. I don't know what it is. I own the game. I own the 3D controller for the game. And I've tried a number of times to sit down, and I even have friends that are really into this game that have tried to show me the way as far as like how to play the game. And I don't know. I don't know what it is about this game, but I don't dislike the game. It's just I can't fully embrace the style of gameplay, so
I think what you're saying is you either have something against Sonic or something against flying.
no, not at all. Actually, I actually
No, I get what Mike's saying, because I also tried playing this game briefly, and I felt like it just wasn't clicking with my brain. I think this is one of those things that if you stick with it and you do it enough, I feel like you're going to have that sudden oh moment, but you're not going to even understand how you got there, and suddenly worlds will open up to you. I don't own it, so I can't have that sort of synergy, but I look forward to the day.
That's exactly it. Like it's one of those games where you cannot just sit down and get it in one shot. You've got to like go back to it, and it's like one of those progressive type of games where like you'll really get into it after a couple playthroughs, and that I think is what I'm missing.
I mean, there are routes that you need to take throughout the levels, but they're not defined for you.
Right.
Like there's the tracks that you can go on are very, very wide, so there's a lot of options for where you. So it's kind of like finding the perfect racing line in a racing game.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of experience with each course in order to really find your optimal way through each one. So and I owned it since it was new, so I've gotten pretty good at it, but I like the game, but I'm still not in love with the game. So I kind of know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It's very unique, and it's not for everybody. And it's kind of like periods where you're just flying through in straight lines, punctuated like with periods of intense action. It's kind of jaunting and jarring with like stabs of action with other parts of like relaxing kind of straight flying. So yeah, it doesn't have that kind of feel of constant action like a regular platformer would.
You mentioned Sonic, and Sonic is definitely an influence here, at least in terms of the composers. Fumie Kumatani worked on a lot of different Sonic games, starting back in '98 with Sonic Adventure, Burning Rangers, Nightshade, which was the Shinobi spin-off Phantasy Star Universe, Knight's Journey of Dreams in 2007, so he came back to do the follow-up Knights game, and some of the Phantasy Star games, and Sonic Colors as well. So definitely did a lot of Sonic stuff, along with Naofumi Hataya, who we've talked about before as well. Burning Rangers, he was the sound director on Sonic R, which you mentioned racing and Sonic. Sonic R is like kind of the perfect hybrid of that. Golden Axe 3, Golden Axe 2, he did sound effects on that one and did music for Golden Axe 3. He's done a bunch of other stuff, so we won't, go into it. We've talked about him before. And then Tomoko Sasaki, who did Sonic Runners, did some voices for that. Did the voice for Chao in Sonic Colors. Was the lead music composer in Knight's Journey of Dreams, which was the follow-up. Rystar was one of the music composers on that. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle in 2001, which was the GameCube re-release, also did Sonic Adventure 2 as well. Japanese character voices. So does a lot with voices, but also does music composition and arrangement. Also did Super Smash Bros. Ball. So that is it when it comes to the composers. So all Sega composers who have been working, off and on up until fairly recently. So
very cool.
Speaking of Sonic Adventure, I want to take you guys back to 1999 when the Dreamcast is coming out and the demo for Sonic Adventure was playing in Toys R Us everywhere, and we were all watching that killer whale, the orca, smash up that bridge, and we were all thinking, oh my god, the future is here, anything is possible, what is this, it's amazing. I loved Sonic Adventure. I know that a lot of people didn't, but I have very strong, nostalgic, good feelings associated with it, and this track actually appears in the game. There is a casino level, and in the casino level you can play pinball. So Sonic is the ball in a giant pinball machine, and there is a Knights-themed pinball table, which I played a ton of because I loved this song so much. So I'm so excited to be playing this track on this episode.
That's really cool. I didn't know this track moonlighted anywhere else.
No.
Very cool.
Oh, so great. I'm getting all the feels right now. The smile on my face right now is huge.
All right, let's move into our next track. So this is Paperboy 2 for the Super NES, which came out in 1991. The track is called Delivery Route, and it's by Nick Eastridge. And let's give it a listen, I guess.
Hello, Jerry.
Aw, yeah! What a beautiful summer day! I just love breakdancing on my scorching driveway pavement!
Here's your paper.
Hey!
Special delivery right to your living room.
Oh, come on! I just had those windows put in last week! Ugh, I hate that Paperboy. I wish there was a way to warn him away from my property for good.
Has your daily paper delivery resulted in a windfall of home repair? Have you run out of car tires to roll in your defense? Is sending out an attack dog and brandishing a rolling pin just not enough? Here at No Paper Painters, we feel your frustration. That's why our company strives to provide you with 24/7 residing services to show your entire neighborhood, and especially that Paperboy, that you are the newest, sourest, dourest non-subscriber on the block. Let's hear from some of our satisfied clients.
Thanks to No Paper Painters, I was able to change my vinyl siding from a happy yellow to a forbidding gray literally overnight. It's been so vindicating to send a clear message to that Paperboy. And just in case he doesn't get it, I also leave an unattended lawnmower running. Thanks, NPP.
Here's your paper. Wow, what a great toss.
My cousin and I were just trying to settle our usual morning fist fight when, bam, a little paper toss right to the face. I know the kid was aiming for my mailbox, but now Cody thinks he won the match fair and square, and there was no way I was gonna let that continue. I'll tell you, I hired NPP as fast as I could, and now the kid chucks papers at both of us out of spite. Thanks for evening the odds, No Paper Painters.
My Paperboy was messing with my backspin practice and making me look like a fool in front of my cool neighbors. He's still pelting me with newspapers, but at least my house looks as resentful as I feel. Thanks, NPP!
Whoa, these houses are scary. I'm going back home to play video games.
No Paper Painters, broadcasting your bitterness on Easy Street, middle road, and hard way since 1985. Not advertised in the Daily Sun. Book your appointment today. Cam Chiles writes, I have an appreciation for this track that is seated almost entirely in nostalgia. I know it's bad. I've heard it described as Seinfeld on crack. You could also call it dad jazz or a dork's idea of cool music. But I don't care. I love every obnoxious horn stab, spastic melodic phrase, and sassy flute line.
Sassy.
There's something quintessentially 90s about the vibe of this music, or maybe just quintessentially my childhood. I loved Paperboy 1 and 2 as a kid, partially because the games had a unique vibe and a weird sense of humor. Both games have music that I would not describe as great, but the sequel takes it to a hilariously bad new level. Bask, VGM fans. Bask in the abomination that is Paperboy 2.
I love this track so much.
It's so good. Five stars.
It's cool. It's
Seinfeld on crack is the absolute apropos
Jerry,
description.
what are you doing?
I delivered your paper, Jerry. I was just laying in the
Why?
window, cracked the window, and flew into your apartment.
Why did you play this track?
After we got this as a suggestion and I listened to the track, I actually brought it up on YouTube and I said to my husband, Nathaniel, you have got to listen to this. And we start listening to it and he immediately goes, whoa, Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And then a couple of seconds in, he's like, okay, I think I'm done. And I'm like, how can you be done? This is amazing.
You need to hear the whole thing.
So one thing I did want to mention is this reminds me of the movie Spinal Tap.
Yes.
When they're playing and they're at this
when they're playing the Jazz Odyssey.
Yes, Jazz Odyssey. I was just gonna say that. So they're at this puppet show and they accidentally got like incorrectly labeled
Spinal Pap or something.
Yeah, they get like incorrectly labeled as a puppet show, or like the puppet show is on top of the bill.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, if I told you once, I told you 1,000 times. Put the puppet show after Spinal Tap. But yeah, they are kind of at a loss. These members of Spinal Tap because they don't really know what to play because one of their members that played pretty much like all these parts in the songs left the band or got kicked out or fired or quit. I can't remember. I think he quit. And so they're kind of like, well, let's bring back this Jazz Odyssey thing. And they're like, all right. So they start playing this like funky, jazzy weirdness called Jazz Odyssey. And it's just like so weird sounding. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie, and that scene is just fantastic. So that's all I could think about during listening to this song was Spinal Tap's Jazz Odyssey.
Somehow there's few things funnier than bad music. And I mean that in a compassionate way. Like, I actually do love this track.
This reeks of Global Gladiators to me. Like, when I think of ridiculous, goofy music that I will put on and just laugh while I listen to it, it's Global Gladiators all the way. I would also say Daytona as well. Like, Daytona isn't good in terms of, like, I will agree with Ed that the Daytona tracks are not good, but they're just so fun to listen to.
This is let me take you for a ride, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
This is like a tour of my worst nightmares,
I'm sorry,
guys.
Ed,
Thank
I'm
you
sorry.
so much.
Pretty much.
Josh, we're
It's
never
like-
going to be invited back. I ruined it.
This is like Ed's least favorite greatest hits. It's like all the tracks that Ed hates on one CD.
They'll just lock me in a room when I go to prison and just play these over and over.
I'm
and
just
over
gonna
again.
burn him a CD of like Global Gladiators, Paperboy 2, Daytona USA's entire soundtrack.
Just put it in my car stereo and rip off the eject button.
Yeah.
Can we do a mockumentary about Nick Eastridge, maybe?
Oh, that would be great.
Hanging out. Actually, what I like about this song, it's not poorly composed. It is funky and goofy, but I like when he gets to that Morse code kind of section of the solo that's just like one note, and it seems like he's just randomly programming intervals just like to hear what it sounds like. And when you get those really short versions of the note, it almost has like a different texture, which I noted about this one synthesizer that I used to have, where if you just tap the key really quickly, it has a different feel. I don't know what it is about clipping that note, but it's kind of cool. I like listening to it.
Interesting.
I just love the stabs, like the random
The
horn stabs where it's just like Dah! And then like, you know, the bass will just kind of like lazily fumble into the song. It's just like boom, you know, just like it's like if Nick Eastridge was a 5-year-old or and like he composed this as a 5-year-old and this was one of his favorite tracks growing up. And the guy, obviously, you know, he's a talented guy. He obviously has a sense for jazz. And so they were like, we need a track, like anything. And he was like, I wrote this when I was 5. And they're like, done, we'll take it. I wanted to talk briefly about Nick. Nick Eastridge is an American programmer. He created a company called Eastridge Technology, and he pretty much was a sound engineer for Mindscape and the software Toolworks, which Paperboy 2 was published by Mindscape, so they probably had him in mind for this game. He has a bunch of different credits. He wasn't really a composer until he figured out how to arrange music and program music and sound and make like sound effects and stuff, so it sounds like he kind of taught himself how to do this.
That's obvious.
He first was the person to do the NES version of Paperboy, of the first Paperboy. He also worked on Mule for the NES. Dirty Harry for the NES, he did the sound driver on that. He's mostly done sound driver work for the most part. He's not really labeled too much as composition, but he actually created a MIDI conversion tool. The instrumentation that he used on the Super NES for this track in particular is a Korg M1 for the slap bass, and it's rumored to have been provided by Sony, which I think Sony actually owns the rights to Seinfeld, if I recall.
Interesting.
I believe.
Whoa.
So that's kind of nerdy. Because of the way that the music was programmed, any Super Nintendo files for these games that he used for his sound engine, you can't dump the music.
Right. Yeah. No, this is a recording from the game and not from like the usual SBC files that you would get.
Interesting.
And I think because of that MIDI conversion tool that he made, which is why none of these notes have any sort of different velocity or why there's so many different pauses in between each one. I think it's just because it's limitations of the sound driver and that conversion process.
Yeah, just on
and that's
or
not
off.
necessarily. Yeah, it's not necessarily that he's a bad composer. It's just the implementation was not where it should be. So
I just want to let everyone know that currently I am looking up how much Paperboy 2 costs. Because I want to own it just for this soundtrack.
I also want to say to any of the VGM JB patrons who are listening, you may be familiar with a guy named Daryl who plays guitar and is either the chillest dude or the most uptight nerd. This is his band playing this track right now, so
Nice.
definitely Daryl.
yeah.
I love the Paperboy 2 cover for the game because it's like this guy who's this rad teenage kid with a backwards neon yellow baseball cap, and he's mid-air
Yeah, he's like
on his
launching.
bike. Yeah, and he's just like, and he's got like a satchel full of papers.
Well, he's got 6 lawnmowers and a hula hoop girl to jump over, so I mean, he's got to get some air there.
I just picture this guy actually delivering these papers, and like they were just like driving by, like the producers or the publishers or whatever were just driving by, and they're, how are we going to advertise for this? I don't know, take a picture of that kid, he's throwing papers. Like,
This track has got to fit the game, though. I mean, the Paperboy is so silly. And the further you get in it, I mean, the weirdest stuff starts showing up. Grim Reapers.
has anyone specifically played this version of the game?
No.
I don't remember.
I think that we all have homework assignments now.
Yeah, we do.
I'll play any Paperboy game. They're so hard, but the play action is so easy to get into that I like them. I don't think I've ever gotten to week 2. Is there a week 2?
No.
Oh.
You just have to get through the 1 week, yeah. Unless it's different on Paperboy too. But I think there's just something so satisfying about throwing a paper and like having it hit like one of the neighbor's windows and hearing that shattering sound. Like I love that. I would just play the game to do that the whole time.
You just like breaking windows.
Yep.
All right, well, I guess we'll move on.
Sure.
What's next?
Speaking of games that are hard to own, this is a game that was out for a little while, and now it's really hard to find. It's Metroid, another Metroid 2 remake, which was a fan game that came out on the PC in 2016. This is Initial Descent, originally composed by Ryoji Yoshitomi for Metroid 2 and arranged by Dr. M64 for the remake.
welcome back. That was Metroid, another Metroid 2 remake, or AM2R. And it came out on the PC in 2016, and the track is called Initial Descent. It's by Dr. M64. That's who did the arrangement. The original track from Metroid 2 is by Ryoji Yoshitomi. Metroid. Poor Metroid. This one makes me sad. Good track, great rendition of the original track by Yoshitomi-san. I think that Dr. M64 really captured that lonely yet hopeful atmosphere that Metroid 2 kind of has going through it, especially in these parts of the game when the track plays. The whole soundtrack as a whole kind of has a story to tell on its own, because you're going through the game. You've landed on this planet. I believe it's SR388.
Yep,
if
that's
I recall.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're just running around, and at first, you're not seeing anything, and then you kind of come across this Metroid, if I recall, and it's been a really long time since I played Metroid 2, so I'm recapturing my experiences from when we did a brief look at it via PixelTunes Plays, where Ed and I sat down and we played a little bit of this game when it came out.
Yeah.
And I believe you kill the Metroid, and then the levels kind of opens up, like the world kind of opens up, and then you can explore more.
Yeah, you have a certain number of Metroids that you have to exterminate, and when you kill a certain amount, there's lava or water that drains. I'm not sure, because I played this on the Game Boy, so some kind of unpassable liquid substance.
Yeah, it's like lava or something. But when it comes to this particular track, it starts playing after you... I believe it starts playing after you kill your first Metroid, and then at that point you're going through the level. It makes sense because it's called Initial Descent, and it really is the initial descent into the game. So it's a good title.
Yeah, I like how they started off much slower than the original song starts off. You get that da 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 da, and then it rests a few bars, and then you get the response da 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 da. So it makes it feel a little more lonely and foreboding, I think, because the Game Boy track from the original game is it's more high energy. It's a little faster paced. It feels more heroic.
Yeah, it does.
It's one of the only tracks in that whole soundtrack that actually has any sort of real, traditional video game musicality to it. So this kind of, I think, starts it off on a slower pace and gets you a little more prepared for what's ahead of you. And then you get that really nice warm bass tone, which I love. I think it's a great compliment to this track.
I will say that this is probably the best Metroid fan game ever made. And, there's been a lot of Metroid fan games, mostly like hacks, if you will. But this, I believe, was all original content in the sense that,
original assets.
Right.
Yeah, but
like the graphics were created from scratch.
Yeah.
They weren't just sprite rips.
Yeah, I gotta say, so I just played the original on the Game Boy last summer. I'm part of this retro gaming forum called Racket Boy, and every summer we do a Summer Games Challenge where you try to play through 5 to 10 classic games that you've never played or you haven't beaten yet. So I did this one last summer, the summer before I did the original Metroid. And I watched you guys play a little bit of the remake in a PixelTunes Play video that you put out. And it was so well done because I just finished playing the Game Boy game and I was watching the footage of you guys, and it was the same game, but beautiful. So they really made it feel like it was the same game again. Yeah,
I mean, I like the fact that in Metroid AM2R, the visuals are just so much better and so much more full of variety. Whereas when you're playing the original Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, everything looks the same. Like, everything is... If you're playing it, especially on the Game Boy, with no color filter or no Super Game Boy specifically, this game is really hard to play.
Definitely.
It's even harder than the original Metroid, in my opinion, because everything looks identical.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, I played through it on a Super Game Boy myself. So before we go any further, I did want to mention that this track was submitted by George Philby, but he didn't leave us a testimonials. So, but thank you, George. Hopefully you watched a little bit of our PixelTunes plays on this, and this inspired you to pick the song, but...
I want to talk so much about this game and this track, but I don't want to go on for 20 minutes. Can I ask Mike a question?
Sure.
So you said this sounded hopeful.
Yeah.
Did you feel that this game had a hopeful vibe? Because I felt like it was a tragedy through and through.
I feel like Metroid 2 is like the Return of the Jedi for Metroid, because it ends with a happy ending.
It does.
You know, you've rescued the baby Metroid, and you're, doing great. You've defeated the, I think it's the Omega Metroid, if I recall. There's multiple different breeds of Metroids in this game, but for this track in particular, I felt like very similar to the way I feel about the very first Metroid when you're in Brinstar and you're running around, because that track as well has a very hopeful, uplifting sound to it. It's like that feeling like you can accomplish and do anything to this track. So it's a great uplifting harmony that it kind of brings.
So interesting. I find the Metroid games to be just permeated with sorrow all over the place.
I agree, but I don't think that these tracks in particular, like this particular track, kind of echoes that. I do feel that most of the Metroid music is very ambient and very dark,
isolating
and depressing.
Yeah.
And so I do get that a lot from most of the Metroid soundtracks, but the Metroid games are really good about kind of introducing the player with a much more vibrant song, and then as the games go on, for example, the very first Metroid, when you're in Kraid's area, that is just such a depressing song. It's great, don't get me wrong, but it's so sad sounding to me. It's very dark and depressing. So there's this feeling of loss that you're feeling throughout the entire playthrough, and you really start to feel that even more in Metroid 2, in my opinion, because you'll get these stabs of music that kind of come in where you'll be you'll enter into a new area and you'll hear dun 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 and then no music whatsoever, and you'll occasionally hear a little enemy chirp, it's got those really creepy it almost sounds like an enemy is rolling down the stairs, a little ball is rolling down the stairs.
And then suddenly you come across a Metroid and it's
and there's da 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 da, and it's just these games do a fantastic job with bringing out an atmosphere to them with music. And I think Hip Tanaka kind of started that with the first Metroid, and other composers continued that vibe, very similar to Kinuyo Yamashita's work on Castlevania 1, kind of being echoed throughout Kenichi Matsubara's Castlevania 2 soundtrack, and all the other composers that worked on Castlevania later on. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So in other news, while Mike and Emily are having their side conversation,
yeah, right.
Hey Josh, do you have any Metroid experience you want to talk about?
I've tried to play Metroid a couple times, but it's just the kind of game where when I get stuck, I'm not having fun. I think there's a kind of game where getting stuck, there's still stuff to do or something like that maybe, and it's a little distracting. But my experience with Metroid games is that I'll get stuck and then I'll be like, oh, can you help me with this? A friend will help me out. And as soon as he helps me out, I just feel like it's not my game anymore, and I stop playing it because I'm like, oh,
okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting, actually. I've never
It's kind of sad.
thought of that.
I just ruin my game because I want to get through the next part, but then by doing that, I no longer feel connected to the playthrough.
Huh.
That's stupid.
That's really interesting. I never would have thought to think like that. I don't know. I've used GameFAQs for games and guides. I have a ton of strategy guides, and I buy every single Metroid guide that I can, just because I like having the art and I like having the ability to go back and figure out how to do a part in the game. So when I played through Metroid Other M, I had the guide with me the entire time by my side, but I only referenced the guide when I got stuck, and then I would beat that part and be like, oh, okay, now I know. And so that's kind of how it always was with me when it comes to these non-linear adventures. I would get to a certain point where I would get stuck, and then I would always have a reference point to fall back on, and that's why I always pick up the guides with specifically RPGs, Legend of Zelda, Metroid, these types of non-linear adventures. So that's interesting.
Neat.
Ryoshi Yoshitomi worked on Alleyway as his first game for the Game Boy in 1989. Continued with some of those, like, I don't want to call them black box games, but very similar to black box games that came out on the NES. Baseball, golf, F1 race,
Nice.
Metroid 2. So, after that, worked on Wario Land 4, Mario Clash on the Virtual Boy, WarioWare Inc. did a lot of the WarioWare Inc. games, and Nintendogs, which came out on the Nintendo DS in 2005. His final game with Nintendo, at least at this point right now, is Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS, which came out in 2011. He's labeled as sound support.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, ready for the next track?
Let's do it.
All right, this one's a well-known game. This one is Shovel Knight, Spectre of Torment. So this is the kind of expansion. It's like a standalone expansion, right? You didn't need the original game to play this one?
Yes.
So this came out on the PS4.
It's like an update.
Yeah, like an update to it. This came out on the PS4 and Switch just recently, about a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
It's called Tools of War, which is the Clockwork Tower remix by Maestro Jake Kaufman. Let's give it a listen.
Welcome back. That was Shovel Knight, Spectre of Torment. Came out in 2017, this year, for the PlayStation 4 and the Switch. The track is called Tools of War Clockwork Tower Remix, and it's by Lord Jake Kaufman, the amazing, wonderful composer that we all love.
Do you guys ever refer to Jake Kaufman as the chosen one?
No.
Not until now.
Not until now.
Or he who is without sin?
Dan Lawton, who picked this track, wrote, "Hello all, as promised, I put my backlog in order, and whatever I was playing midnight last night is what I was going to submit. Luckily, it was from Jake Kaufman, and I had finished the boring shmup I was playing early. Here's my description. Sorry if I'm not as musically inclined as you talented people. The Tools of War is how remixes should be done. For me, the original Clockwork Tower song was one of the less memorable tracks of Shovel Knight, but this Tools of War remix makes this a standout in the Spectre of Torment. It's wonderful that the melody of the song remains intact, but the harmonies were greatly changed to give this a much more upbeat feel. Most of the Spectre of Torment soundtrack is rather melancholic so this is a refreshing change when playing the game. There's a great deal going on with the multitude of complex layers, but it comes across as clean and not too busy. But I think you can say that about any Jake Kaufman song. It has a wonderful rhythm and is just an absolute pleasure to listen to. I couldn't agree more. I think that the song has a strong, upbeat sound to it, and I would say that I prefer this version of the song just because it does seem a little bit more like densely layered. It doesn't seem as empty as the original, in my opinion, but I love the drums too, what he did with the drums. What do you guys think?
This is a great track, and I think that this kind of goes back to what we were speaking about before, about kind of the newer games keeping truer to the actual NES hardware or doing extra with it, because now we have the capability to do that. Because, like you were saying, this is more densely layered. I don't think this was possible on an NES. It sounds like the dual NES scenario I was thinking of before. I mean, right? Would we agree?
Yeah, I don't think the remix tracks could be done on an NES, but I do believe that the original tracks from Shovel Knight, not the expansions.
Oh yeah, I'm only speaking to this particular. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think the originals could be done on an
Yeah,
NES.
it was NES plus VRC6.
Right.
That's what he used for the original one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but the remixes, I don't know if they were done on FamiTracker or not. I mean, I don't hear any sounds necessarily that would fall outside of the NES realm.
There's just more of them.
So to say. Yeah, it does sound like there are a lot of layers. I don't know.
I think the drums give it away.
Yeah, he didn't release the NES like sound source files like for the Spectre of Torment edition, because he did that with the original version. So I wonder if that means that he did not use FamiTracker, but I don't know. I mean, I love the upbeatness to this track. I love most of Kaufman's work, and it was just very much like this very strong melody. Sometimes it gets a little too busy for me, but everybody has a different level of busyness they like in their music. So, but this does definitely stay below that level of busyness. It's very easy to understand what he's trying to convey with the melodies. It's just got a very heroic feel, and like I said, I mean, the whole soundtrack is amazing. So I haven't really heard much of the Spectre of Torment soundtrack much except for this one, but
yeah,
just hearing this, I want to go through and hear some of the... I didn't even realize they were remixes of the original tracks for the most part. So I'm very curious to go through and compare his originals to his Spectre of Torment versions.
It's weird because I haven't gone back to Shovel Knight since I beat it when it came out. So, and that bums me out because I know that they did a bunch of stuff to it. I know they added more characters, and I know they, did like, I think like a gender swap sort of thing. And, like I wanted to go back and keep playing it, but I haven't. I don't know. I kind of moved on to other games.
Yeah, other stuff comes out and you get sidetracked.
Yeah. So.
Hey, Mike and Ed, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So
the answer is cheese.
Is it cheese from Taco Bell cheese, or is it like a... is it
like nacho cheese? Oh man, now
I think it comes out of a squirt bottle over there, right? It's like a cheese gun.
Don't ruin...
I don't care where it comes from.
All right.
Don't ruin Taco Bell for me. It comes from the udders of cows. Anyways.
My other question, thank you for answering the first one. So my second question then for you guys is, so when you play indie games, because I'm not really into the indie scene, not that I'm avoiding it, I just haven't kind of gotten there for some reason, but do they typically go to the NES ear feel for these things that are supposed to bring up nostalgia for you? I just feel like I never really hear about these indie retro-inspired games kind of going the Sega Genesis way. But I just may not be hearing
necessarily.
about it.
Yeah, I mean, there are some that do follow like an NES kind of aesthetic as far as the music goes, but I've heard C64 style music, I've heard ZX Spectrum style music, I've heard some FM, but not too much. I'd probably say as far as indie games go, that's the least prevalent music chip that they use for indie games, but mainly, I guess... And it all depends on where they were developed, too. I think if the indie games developed in the UK are probably going to get more of those C64, ZX Spectrum kind of feels, because that's much more nostalgic in that area.
Too.
Yeah, stuff developed in the US, I think you're going to hear a lot more NES. SNES is much harder to kind of emulate the feel for, because there's so many different instrument sets.
Right.
There's been indie Super Nintendo games that have come out that were not very impressive audibly. For example, the recent, I think it's called Unholy Night, that
fighting game?
The fighting game made by the ex-King of Fighters developers, right? Or SNK people. And that soundtrack is just not good. I mean,
I haven't heard it. But
it's really, very similar to the game itself. It's very rough sounding and very simplistic. Very, like, not like goofy MIDI keyboard
just
like
unmemorable.
Paperboy 2. Just very unmemorable, right? And so I think Super Nintendo is really hard to do when it comes to that. But I think that NES is a little bit easier in terms of mimicking.
That's a really good point. I was kind of just wondering if NES was somehow the universal nostalgia language.
I'd say NES and Game Boy. I mean, there's a lot of focus on Game Boy too because there's a huge chiptune scene when it comes to Game Boy games.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think with the composing tools for the Game Boy and for the NES are much easier to use.
Yeah.
And so composers are much more familiar with them, so they're able to create stuff that's more along the line of what their vision is with those chips as well.
Interesting.
Jake Kaufman doesn't really need to be mentioned other than the fact that he's awesome. I mean, we can go into greater detail. Shovel Knight, Double Dragon Neon.
One Without Sin.
Mm-hmm. One Without Sin.
Chosen One.
Yeah, the
He
Chosen
who casts
One.
the first jam.
Every Shantae game.
He who casts no shadow in the sunlight.
He's a great composer that we all love, so Jake Kaufman, in my opinion, can do no wrong. So, good stuff.
Excellent.
I think I want to try that Ryu powder one more time.
I don't know, Josh. Hayabusa-san looked really serious when he told us to only use it in an emergency.
We'll just make something up. I'll pretend I sprained my ankle, so he needs to carry me across the rooftops to the hospital. He'll buy that, right?
Good enough for me. Hey, who unscrewed the top of this shaker?
That was priceless. You should have seen your face.
Mike.
Sorry. Calm down, though. It should still work. Right? So, where's Ryu?
USA!
Where am I? What is this place? Is this the work of Shadowloo?
It's Ryu, but not that Ryu. Oh, it's the Ryu from Capcom's acclaimed Street Fighter video game series.
Oh my gosh, this is officially the most awesome afternoon of my entire life.
Hey Ryu, I'm a huge fan, even though Ken's actually a little bit cooler.
Zangief, it's time we finally found out who's the strongest fighter. Let's battle.
Zangief? Well, I guess the beard could use a little trim, but... Ouch! Ow!
Ryu, please. We used too much summoning powder and got you instead of the Ninja Gaiden Ryu. We don't want to fight you.
Stop the deceit, Cammy. You won't cannon drill me like you did last time.
That's what she said. Ow!
Look, Ryu, we just want to chill out and play some video game music. Maybe you want to join us?
No, Fei Long, I don't want to chill out. I want to be the best fighter in the world.
Fei Long, but I'm not even Chinese. Ow!
Alright, enough. This stops here. Ryu, stop hurting my friends.
When did you learn English, Blanca? No matter, you're in for a face full of fireball.
Blanca? Now, just wait a cotton-picking minute there, you... Ow!
No further challengers? You did quite well, but you need more training to defeat.
Oh, snip!
What's this? A jukebox?
Oh, that's Haju, our Haunted Jukebox. Over on our podcast, she plays the tunes and sometimes even picks some herself.
But she doesn't know how to fight, Josh. The only way she defends herself is... Oh, I get it.
I don't care how amazing your musical selection is. You must defeat my Dragon Punch too.
Stand a chance.
Well, there's something you don't see every day.
Pretty unconventional for a Street Fighter match, but a win's a win.
Yeah, Haju!
Woohoo!
I think since Haju just saved all our hides, we should let her vote on the last 4 tracks we play. What do you guys say?
Oh, I guess that sounds good.
Yeah, that
Well,
sounds
we should
good.
do
yeah,
that
sounds
because
good.
if
Yeah.
we don't,
Maybe.
that's a
But
plan.
where's Ryu Hayabusa?
What was-
Is he gonna come back?
Things.
That's a good
cheese,
idea, generally.
Pickles.
Excellent. It's all yours, Haju. All right, so Haju's first pick of the rest of our show is from Killer Instinct Season 1. This is Warlord, otherwise known as Spinal's theme from Mick Gordon. Welcome back. That was Spinal's theme from Killer Instinct Season 1, which came out on the Xbox One and PC in 2013, composed by Mick Gordon and vocals by Pontus Ruffelt, who shouts so much that he probably lost his voice after this. I really like this one. I love this whole soundtrack. They really did a good job with Killer Instinct. I mean, it definitely appeals to the industrial metal side of my predilections for video game music, and this one just has that kind of like Laibach meets Rammstein meets Hansel and Gretel feel to it. It's very militaristic sounding, very metal and industrial. The lyrics are in Swedish, so it's... I was thinking it was maybe probably like German or Slovakian or something, but I was surprised it was in Swedish.
I think the reason for that is Spinal, the character, is, I believe, like, one of his levels takes place in one of the games, like, on a ship, or there's, like, ships in the background, and they're, like, those old, like, Viking style, like, kind of ships, kind of.
So he's got more of a Nordic kind of background?
Yeah, if I recall.
That's more like Scandinavian, though, if you're Swedish. So
I don't know. No clue. Yeah, no offense to who picked this track, who was Alex Messenger. He left no testimonial for us, but...
As he's wont to do.
Yeah, but I really couldn't get into this one. I don't know what it was. I normally really like Mick Gordon's stuff. I think part of the reason why I kind of dislike this one is it takes too long for it to build up, and then it doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, the end of the track, it kind of like subsides, and then it comes back. But for the most part, like, it never really tapped into anything that I was interested in audibly. So I was just kind of left like, I like, it sounds like the drums are like being banged, but the drums, instead of them being real drums, are like, you know, skulls. So it has that like bone crunching sound to them. So I really like that throwback to the original Spinal theme song. But I don't know, this one just took too long for me to build, and by like a minute in, I lost interest. So
Ed and Mike don't share their opinion of something. Interesting.
Who would have thought?
Shocker.
Well, I do think that's interesting, because off air we were talking about how you two think that the greatest Dorito flavor is the spicy chili.
Yes.
So it seems like you guys actually share a lot, because I think that's kind of a weird choice.
We do.
Except when it comes to music, for the most part.
We have a deep fascination with Doritos and Taco Bell. That is what our friendship is based on.
Taco Bell, the uniter of all.
I'm a Del Taco guy, but I know that's not national.
Del Taco? What's wrong with you?
Well, there aren't any Del Tacos around here.
God.
Have you ever had Del Taco?
No.
So how do you know to judge?
Because
Mike just threw down.
I will throw the nostalgic Taco Bell gauntlet down.
Oh, I see. So you're just loyal to the brand.
Loyal to the brand all
Gotcha.
the way.
I do like Taco Bell a lot. I like the Mexican pizzas
Oh, yeah,
a
I
lot,
love those.
and I like all the crunch wraps.
Welcome to Taco Bell Tunes Radio.
I was like, how did we get from Spinal to here?
Taco Tunes.
Bone crunching?
Bones. Taco bones.
Taco bones. I will eat the bones of my enemies.
Oh, there shouldn't be bones in your Del Taco. Your Taco Bell.
No, not at all.
I'm gonna guess that this is a Emily track more than it's a me track.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Emily's got more of an intensity about her, and this song also has a lot of great texture. She's got a dark side that I just, I don't relate to that part of her.
You don't want to tap into it too much?
No, Josh just wants to play golf on the fairway all the time.
Right.
I would say I am more likely to actually mosh, probably, if I were in that situation than Emily, but I would never put myself in a situation where I'm supposed to mosh on purpose.
That works. Speaking of moshing, Mick Gordon actually played live at the last Video Game Music Awards, or Video Game Awards, whatever they want to call them.
You better put that in quotes. Video Game
Award. Video Game
show.
Marketing Opportunity.
Quote unquote.
But
right.
The cool thing was it was Mick Gordon live on stage with Sasha Dikazian, who was the composer of Quake 2. So they did this medley of Doom music and Quake 2
cool.
music live on stage, and there were actually like people moshing in the pit, like right in front of it. It was really cool, and as a fan of both of those soundtracks, it was crazy.
How many people in the band were there? What was the band ensemble?
No, it was just two.
Just them?
It was just two, yeah.
Cool.
It was pretty freaking cool.
I could be wrong about Emily's mosh tendencies, though, by the way. Emily, would you have moshed at that situation?
Yes, I would have.
Oh, okay.
I
All
have
right.
solo moshed,
I would be there.
in fact, in my laundry
Okay.
room, which is so badass.
I'm moshing right now.
You sound very relaxed for one who's moshing.
Sorry, Ed.
He's moshing, driving, changing his own diaper. He's doing it all, ladies and gentlemen.
So about these lyrics, there is a YouTube video that has translated them, and I'm not listening to the music, but I'm looking at the lyrics scroll by, so I thought I would just read some of these to you in kind of poetry slam fashion.
I want the general gist of this.
Yeah, and I can give you the summary after. I just kind of randomly put my cursor in the middle, so here we go. The enemy gathered around our kingdom, ready to subdue us now. Warriors gather at the holy grave. Call on Spinal, warrior, god. Help we need at this battle. Save us, mighty god. Skin, skin, skin. So basically,
Cool.
this is...
Wow.
That wasn't part of the song. It was just Emily singing.
Yes, no, I was ad-libbing my own. No, so I guess this song is about a bunch of warriors getting together, eating intoxicating mushrooms, calling on a warrior god to help them skin their enemies alive.
Ah, okay.
Also, the forest is talking now, by the way.
I didn't realize that Spinal was such a godlike character in the Killer Instinct universe. I thought he was just some skeleton with a sword, but it seems like he's a bit more than that.
Yeah, no, I think he's
being summoned by these warriors.
We eat mushrooms for power and intoxication, picking up axes, harnesses, helmets. With God's Spinal strength and courage, victory, victory, victory is ours.
Cool.
Skin.
That's the next part, actually. Skin, skin, skin.
Yes.
If you have a living skeleton walking around your town winning fighting championships, I guess you start worshiping him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose so.
very
Yeah.
logical.
Story of my life.
Mike the Walking
I also
Skeleton.
just want to note,
No, just constantly worshiping skeletons that are winning battle royales in my
Hey, that skeleton's back. Did you hear he won the Street Fighter tournament? We should probably build a shrine.
He won by the skin of his teeth. Oh, wait.
Oh boy.
That's not going to work.
Oh, wait,
He's a
he
skeleton.
didn't have any skin on his teeth.
Womp womp. Or anywhere for that matter.
Unlike me.
Gross.
let's not use that Ryu powder just in case Spinal's actual name is Ryu. And we
Yeah.
accidentally summon him.
It's like a Candyman.
Is the
kind of
skin
thing.
of one's teeth gums, or is it plaque, or something else?
Or the-
Gingivitis.
Just the enamel.
I need to exfoliate my teeth later.
Welcome to Dental Tunes Radio.
Well, speaking of Josh's teeth, our next track is from World of Goo.
That was a Josh level segue right there.
That was Beast.
This is a track named Screamer, composed by Kyle Gabler. Let's give it a listen.
Welcome back. That was World of Goo. The track is Screamer by Kyle Gabler, and this was a PC game from 2008.
Yes, ma'am.
And this one comes to us from Dan Brooks. So Dan Brooks says, This track really captures the mood of the levels it's in. It resonates with a feel of bleak, ominous, industrial desolation. Simple, but perfect. World of Goo is probably my favorite puzzle game.
World of Goo is a fantastic puzzle game, and it does have a really cool soundtrack too.
This one also came out on the Wii. That's how I played it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I didn't know it came out on anything else.
It was a WiiWare game, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was one of the first WiiWare games to come out, and
Okay.
it was kind of unique because everyone was like, "Oh, there's games to play on the Wii other than Virtual Console games." Sold.
Yeah.
So I remember picking it up, not knowing that much about it, and it wasn't bad. I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty fun, but I got bored with it pretty quick. So I got to a point. I can't remember how the levels were laid out, but I got kind of far-ish, and then I was like, I'm gonna move on to other stuff.
I was into it.
Yeah, I think this is a good game to play, like, not necessarily playing through the whole game at once, but when you have like a couple spare minutes, you don't have time to play a full game, you can get in there and kind of work out a level or a puzzle on your own.
It gets pretty tough.
Yeah, you've got these little balls of goo,
Gross.
and you use your mouse to kind of place them close to other balls of goo, and they kind of make structural beams that connect each other. So you've got to build bridges across gaps or build towers to get up to the goal at the top of the stage. And gravity's a big factor, so you want to build your tower so that it doesn't tip in either direction or is too weak to hold itself up. So it requires a lot of strategy. You have to get so many balls of goo up into the pipe or wherever it is at the end of the stage to be able to beat the level, and then you get bonus points for any extra balls that you have on top of your goal.
Gross.
Yeah.
I will say that I do think that it is possible to have a game that you can, this is rare for me, but enjoy the game, enjoy the soundtrack for what it is in the game, but really not like the soundtrack.
Oh, of course.
And this is that game for me. Like, the soundtrack fits really well with World of Goo. It really does. But this track in particular was just really boring to me. And it's a puzzle game, so you kind of gotta come at it with that ideology. But still, listening to this track, it just made me want to fall asleep. Which is great if you like ambient music, but when I think video game music, I don't think that. So, I don't know. Just me.
I feel like Josh is kind of in your camp there, right, sir?
Yeah, we were both virtually yawning together.
Virtually yawning.
They were in the same sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I gave him all my Doritos,
Aww.
so there.
It's just a couple big bends. Burn.
Yeah.
It's fine. And not a delight to all the senses, though. Maybe my ears like it a little bit, but my brain gets bored, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right on.
Oh gosh, man, everything you guys are describing is like exactly what I love about this track.
Yeah.
I love this track. This track reminds me of the Mass Effect music, particularly from the first game. It actually kind of sounds to me like Commander Shepard just put on a cowboy hat and she's like riding across this empty planetary landscape. But I think that this track is just so good. I love the ambiance of it, and I just think it's really great.
Yeah, I definitely think it has that very textured feel that you said you like so much as well. In context, maybe I like the music more because I have it in context. You know, I know the kind of story behind the game is that you're guiding these balls of goo into these pipes because in the game the balls are very curious about the pipes. I feel like I'm back in third grade again. But what they don't know is that they're being guided into this factory that's being used to produce this goo into, like, you know, stuff that people can buy, like material goods. So they don't know they're marching to their doom.
Oh no!
Yeah, and most of Kyle Gabler's games are like that. He's the composer and also the designer and the developer of the game. Same thing with
Do you know that going into it?
Kind of, yeah. But it does get better at the end. I think I haven't played all the way to the end, but I'm pretty sure that towards the end of the game you're helping the goo escape from the factory to destroy the factory.
See.
So
they allow you to have that that heel turn.
Yeah, exactly. And then his follow-up game to this was Little Inferno,
Right.
in which you are like burning toys in a fireplace to keep warm.
That game looked really cool.
It is a really fantastic game.
Yeah, you played a track from that on a previous episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so that has that same kind of thing where there's this giant kind of nefarious corporation in the background that kind of gets more into the foreground as you go through the game, and then you realize what they're all about, and then you kind of overcome that whole concept.
Yeah.
So, I guess Kyle Gabler kind of likes that idea of these kind of bad corporations that are kind of controlling you, and then you're overcoming that whole thing. So with this kind of soundtrack and this kind of song, it kind of has that foreboding feel to it, but also kind of a whimsy to it where you're kind of discovering things as well. So I think he did a really good job kind of combining those two feels.
His design styles remind me a lot of like Invader Zim.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Jonan Vasquez.
Vasquez,
Yeah.
Tim Burton,
Yep.
that kind of very cartoony yet
But dark.
gothic style aesthetic. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I need to pick up Little Inferno. It looks really fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, is this track just a level tune, or where is this occurring in the game? Do you know?
This one, I think, might be like a story cutscene, or there's a map in between levels that there are some branching paths with different puzzles that you can go through. It might play during one of those. I don't remember this playing during any particular level, but it might be because I haven't gotten that far yet. But
That sounds about right. To me, it sounds like the kind of title screen music that would make me put the controller down and listen
Yeah.
for a while. Josh and I talk about this a lot on our podcast because this comes up in the testimonials that our patrons send. That moment where you put the controller down and just listen.
where the music becomes more important than the game itself.
Yeah, it's weird. I would say I don't think I really do that. I don't put the controller down and just listen to the music. I always I may pause the game, but I will never physically put a controller down and sit there and listen to the music. It's more like I will play a game, and while I'm playing the game, I'll intentionally go back if I really like a track. Like I will wait for the right moment to hit a boss for the music to change. So I won't
Yeah. I would go one step further. I would pause it, put the controller down, go over to my stereo, hit record on the tape player, and then make it so I can listen to it on the go.
Right.
I used to put the controller to my ear because I thought that's where the music was coming out of.
Oh, Josh.
I'd be like, oh, I like this song.
Wait, that's not where the music's coming out of?
Uh-oh, Mike.
Uh-oh.
We got something to tell you.
You need player 2 for the stereo effect. That's why you have to buy that second controller.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's only from mail-in ordering, like the second player justifier controller. So
Yes.
not a lot of people have that one. Not a lot of people get to experience it in stereo.
You have to send in 30 box tops from Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, I think.
Sweet.
Yeah, UPCs from 30 copies of Super Mario Brothers for the NES.
Yes.
Plus $3.95.
Shipping and
Man,
handling.
I feel another commercial coming on here.
No CODs. Made in Utah.
All right, well, let's move on to our next track. This one is from a classic, Final Fantasy X. Came out on PS2 in 2001. This is To Xenarkand by composer Nobuo Uematsu.
Welcome back. That was Final Fantasy X for the PlayStation 2. Came out in 2001. The track was To Zenarkand, and that was by Nobuo Uematsu. I remember playing Final Fantasy X shortly after it came out. Probably a couple of years after it came out, actually. Like maybe 2003. Myself and some friends were on a binge of Final Fantasy games, and we decided we were going to try to play through all of Final Fantasy X. And so we had just finished replaying Final Fantasy VII, and so we're like, you know what? Let's do 10. So we started playing it. I got up to the part where you have to, because we were trying to get everything. So we had the strategy guide, and we were going through the whole game. And I got to the part where you had to dodge lightning while running through this field.
Oh yeah.
And if you dodge lightning like 200 times or something like that, you get Tidus's special weapon. And I was like, nope, can't do it. Like, we tried. We legit gave it a shot, and we couldn't do it. And so we never ended up going back to the game.
Oh.
So I still have the same save file where I'm like 20 hours into the game, and I'm just like, nope, forget that.
Now's the time.
Now's the time. I gotta call up my friend who lives in Virginia and be like, dude, move back home, leave your wife and kid. That's it, we're doing this.
It's time to dodge lightning.
Yeah, it's time to dodge
But I
lightning.
mean, you could have beat the game without getting that special weapon, right?
Oh, totally, but
That's funny.
because we were trying to go for everything, it was like such a, I don't know, it was like one of those things where we're like, we'll come back to this, and then we never did. So
That's funny.
We started playing like X-Men Legends after that or something like that.
So who was the submitter for this track?
So Rob Nichols, who is also known as one half of Rhythm and Pixels podcast, submitted this track.
Yay!
And Rob writes, this track is beautiful and emotional. When it comes on near the end of the game, it fits so perfectly. Final Fantasy X has a strong musical theme throughout that matches its strong religious elements. The composer, Nobuo Uematsu, went as far as to create hymns that play when visiting each of the temples in the game. I'm not a religious person, but it conveys the sense of greater than you that's worth sacrificing for. Yuna is the best, by the way. This song holds more importance for me than what happens in the game through. About 15 years ago, I started dating an amazing woman, and Final Fantasy X was the first game experience we shared. We fell in love with the characters, the story, the sphere grid system, and of course the music. Together, we've played through this game 3 times, and 1 time getting most of the ultimate weapon things. But really, sharing this with someone else made it special. It meant that I could share having strong emotions over video games with someone else. This opened the way for us to share other experiences and passions and explore them as fully as we can out of love and respect for each other. We've been married for 13 years now, and this is still our favorite Final Fantasy.
Aww.
Congratulations.
Gross.
Gross.
No, that is sweet. That's really cool. Oh, also, you misspelled Lulu. You wrote Yuna. Yeah, that's not how you spell Lulu.
I don't even know these characters, so.
Lulu is another character in Final Fantasy X. She's kind of like this, I don't know, busty black mage, goth black mage.
Gotcha.
Is she the one with the belt skirt?
Yes, the belt skirt.
Yeah,
girl.
the skirt made entirely out of belts because
Yes.
Final Fantasy is always pushing the fashion. You thought
Yeah.
you
Right,
couldn't make a
buckles
skirt
are
out of
in.
belts? Well, here, haha.
I'm wearing a skirt out of belts right now.
Oh, see?
Yeah,
My belt's made out of skirts.
You guys are so cutting edge.
yeah, man.
I was surprised to hear a submission like this from Rob Nichols because he's usually like into the drum and bass, and he likes like electronic and techno music a lot. So hearing like a beautiful piano piece from him was kind of a shock. But knowing that it's got a really heavy sentimental value for him makes more sense after listening to his testimonial.
Yeah.
Oh, I love sharing video games with people like this. My husband and I are like this. Our game of choice for this sort of thing is the Mass Effect series. I think we've both played through it, all 3 of the original trilogy 3 times. So
wow.
We've covered a lot of the story ground, and it's so much fun to sit there with somebody and agonize over the decision you're about to make in this dialogue tree. There were moments when, one of us would be playing, the other one would be standing up in the living room, just like, oh my God, what's happening? What are we doing? And just kind of panicking. It's great. And actually, my best friend who lives in California, her name is Nikki. She is about to get the new Mass Effect game, Mass Effect Andromeda. And I've been waiting until she gets it so that we can play it simultaneously and kind of communicate back and forth about what we're doing and what our characters
Nice.
are like. So I love having that
Very
experience
cool.
with people.
Very cool. What about you, Josh?
My wife and I don't share many gaming experiences. She mostly hates video games, but we used to play track and field at the local arcade. There was like a 4-player version. And that was a lot of fun. It was like the tabletop version of track and field. So there were times when all 4 of us would just be like she and I and our wives. No, I'm just kidding. And some 2 other people or whatever. We would just be like slamming these buttons like all super loud in the arcade. Kind of almost entirely unrelated to this experience.
It's nothing like this, but sure. Yeah, same with me. My wife doesn't really play video games at all. She claims to play video games, but then we'll play for like 10 minutes and she'll be like, I don't like this, or she'll just walk away. So, but I do have kids, and at least one of those kids is really into Nintendo right now. I talked about him on the Yoshi episode a lot. So Logan and I have been going through a lot of the Nintendo first-party games for the Wii U and the Wii and the 3DS. So we're sharing those sentimental moments together that I can't have with my wife. So screw her.
All right, then. Yeah, no,
I don't mean that for real.
My wife likes some of the games that I guess she has nostalgia for, as well as like a lot of like casual puzzle games. So she's a big fan of like Candy Crush, and she really loves Peggle, like those types of games, and pretty much like puzzle games for the most part. She's a bigger mobile gamer than anything, but
yeah, mine too.
She does enjoy the occasional Mario Kart and Crash Bandicoot and Sonic and Spyro, and that is pretty much her limit to video games.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she is not a fan of video game music either. So
Yeah, so screw her.
Gross. Anyways, so
I was just getting something off my chest with that,
gross.
What? Wait, what?
So, Nobuo Uematsu, no stranger to the podcast. We did pretty much an entire episode featuring his music for the Final Fantasy episode. Go check it out. It's a great little look into other Final Fantasy type of games. Good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. This is also the first Final Fantasy game that had like full-on voiceover work, and the voiceover work is really cringeworthy at times.
Yeah,
so
your mileage may vary. Yes. I looked at some of the Japanese footage because I typically like, if I have the choice, I like the Japanese audio more than the English audio, and I don't believe you have a choice in Final Fantasy X, but I looked at some YouTube clips eventually, when YouTube came around and allowed us to experience these things. That laughing scene, almost worse in Japanese.
Oh, really?
Really floored me. So,
that's interesting.
All regions got that pain equally.
Yeah, no, I need to definitely watch that to see how bad it is.
And can we make a decision as a culture and as a people to just stop pretending we like Final Fantasy games?
Oh.
I'm there with you, Josh.
Now Josh is throwing down.
I'm just kidding.
I like the original ones, but I have just not. Like I said, since Final Fantasy VIII and onward, I have not been able to get into a single one of them. Even this most recent one, where people are like, "Yeah, it's not fantasy anymore. You drive cars." And I've watched lots and lots of footage on YouTube, and I do not see what I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail about this, but I don't see what the fervor is about.
That is actually the main reason why I'm not interested in this new Final Fantasy 15. That and all the characters look like they're right out of a Backstreet Boys video.
Right, yeah.
So, when Final Fantasy tends to go more modern and less sci-fi fantasy, I typically get disinterested. Because who wants to watch a bunch of pretty boys drive around in a car for 100 hours?
Jeez, nobody.
Raises my hand.
Yeah. So
maybe Josh does.
Maybe Josh. I don't know.
How pretty? I don't know. We'll have to look at that.
I was being sarcastic. I'm sure there are a lot of women gamers who very much enjoy watching that.
Well, the game sold millions, so at least millions of people do.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm sure. No, I mean, we talked all about this on the Final Fantasy episode. My limitation of Final Fantasy kind of ranges. I'm open to the idea of enjoying a Final Fantasy game, but I would say that I'm not a Final Fantasy humongous fan or fanboy. So
right on.
Let's move into our next game. What do we got?
Next up is Perfect Dark, which came out right at the millennium, year 2000. And for the N64, this is Chicago Stealth by Grant Kirkhope, Graham Norgate, and David Klinick.
That was Perfect Dark for the N64 in the year 2000. The title of the track was Chicago Stealth. It was composed by Grant Kirkhope, Graham Norgate, and David Klinick. Joe Marolo writes about it. This is easily one of my favorite games of all time. Rare took everything that was right about GoldenEye and improved on it for Perfect Dark. The handling on this FPS shows the absolute best that the N64 had to offer. This game had amazing multiplayer, and the single-player missions were fun and interesting and varied. The scale got incredibly difficult as the game went on, especially at the hardest level towards the end levels. This level was a stealth level where you have to sneak around the city of Chicago during a rainstorm and find items and plant a bug on a car and reprogram a computerized car to take control of it in a later level. There was also an unbeatable robot sentry that lurked around that level, happy to laser you to pieces if it ever spotted you. I finally beat this game on the hardest mode after dozens of hours of gameplay, but it never got boring.
Yeah,
Amen
congratulations, Joe.
Congratulations. Hey, I think after dozens, that's not so bad.
Yeah, this game it gets pretty tough on the harder difficulty settings.
Yeah.
I love Perfect Dark. It is one of my favorite first-person games. It is awesome. Really good game. Way better than GoldenEye, so I'm glad that he touched on that. And like you said, Chicago Stealth, I don't know, it's a little bit more of a laid-back track. It's still good. Really, I love the note bending that's going on with the main melody when the melody kicks in. I don't know, it has some really cool moments to it. The background beat is just kind of, I don't know, it's melancholy, but it's still enjoyable. I really love the more high energy tracks from this soundtrack. In fact, there's an option in the multiplayer where you can change the songs so that only certain songs play. You basically make your own customized soundtrack from the game's music. And so playing this game multiplayer with all the really high energy tracks is just so good.
That's an interesting idea of like being able to change your own like playlist or whatever. Like what if in Sonic the Hedgehog you could play Marble Zone during Green Hill Zone? How would that feel, you know?
That would be cool. That was kind of like a trend during the like late PlayStation, early PlayStation 2 days, where a lot of like soundtracks would have like, you'd have the rock version of the soundtrack or like the hip hop version of the soundtrack, and you can choose like which genre you wanted to play while you were playing the game, or mix them up as you wish. And then they kind of did away with that after a little while. But I remember games like Burnout having that kind of soundtrack selection option where you could only listen to particular tracks as you played. And I really like that because I'm kind of particular with the kind of music I like to listen to while I play my games. So I use that all the time. So I don't know. I feel like, yeah, you're right. The really high energy tracks would be perfect for multiplayer.
Yeah.
But I feel like music like this does have a place in Perfect Dark because there are lots of kind of stealthy or less action-packed, you know, places within the game where this kind of music would definitely be suitable.
Yeah, it fits.
I myself haven't even played this game other than like the first 2 stages, and then I kind of lost interest. So
did you like GoldenEye?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was just not a N64 fan at all anyway
that's right.
to begin with.
I
So
keep forgetting.
I watched my brother play this game through like several dozen times, just like Joe, but I never actually played it myself.
I'm just over here having a moment.
I see.
This actually does have a name, this dance move I'm doing right now. We call this one the lawyer headbang. It's a very slow, stately headbang that originated on a Phoenix Wright tune we played on our podcast once. This track is so good, and I have to tell you, I don't know if you're going to agree with me or not, but this gets me in all of the Echo the Dolphin feels to me.
I don't have Echo the Dolphin feels, but if I did, I totally would know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
I feel like the Haunted Jukebox is putting me to sleep real quick. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm not a big fan of feeling dolphins, so...
It's not for everybody.
No.
They're very smooth.
Yes.
Dolphin smooth.
Gross. Perfect Dark is great. I would recommend if you have a 360 or an Xbox One playing the remastered version of the game. It basically smooths over a lot of the textures, makes them higher resolution, gets rid of the slowdown that the multiplayer has.
Oh, so for once they actually did a remake right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a remake, it's more like a rebuffering or I don't know. It's
like an
not
update?
like a redo. It's a remaster.
Okay.
A remaster.
It's like a lacquering.
A lacquering.
A sanding and lacquering.
Yeah. It's cleaner, it runs better, and it's a lot of fun. It's just, you know, I have nostalgic feels for Perfect Dark. I was super hyped about it. I even had the standee in my room, in my bedroom, when I lived with my dad in my hometown, and I got from like Toys R Us or EB Games or one of those. They were getting rid of those standees, and so I used to go and try to get standees from the stores. And so I remember going into EB Games and I was like, hey, you know, can I get this standee? And they're like, yeah, sure. And they took down my number and called me one day and they were like, yeah, it's here, pick it up whenever. And I picked it up and it sat in my room for years.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had thought to have that initiative as a child. It never occurred to me that I could do something like that.
But yeah, Perfect Dark, I have so much play time on this one. I still have my original N64 cartridge and memory card. In fact, I met Grant Kirkhope at MagFest one year, and I had him. I brought my Perfect Dark cart with me because I knew he was going to be there, and I had him sign my Perfect Dark cart. So
oh, it's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I've been meaning to play this game for years. It keeps getting recommended to me, and maybe this is going to inspire me to pick it up.
It's cool. It's definitely recommended. It's got a cool story, cool characters. You know, it's good stuff. I would recommend if you are going to play it though, and if you have an Xbox, definitely play it on the 360.
Yeah, and I think also because you can use the dual analogs, it's much more modern feel to it. I think the N64 controller was one of my main misgivings about first-person shooters on the N64.
I thought they controlled pretty well. I mean, the analog stick you would use to move, and then the C stick left and right you would use to strafe.
Yeah.
Back and forth, and then, you know, up and down for the C buttons. So I didn't personally have a problem with them.
I'm one of the few and the proud lovers of the N64 controller. I love that controller.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. I think it's a well-designed controller. I will say
I saw that look, Ed. I saw it. I saw you rolling your eyes.
I literally did roll my eyes.
Yeah, I saw it. With my mind.
I think that the N64 controller works really well for 3D games and 3D environment games. It's not as intuitive when it comes to 2D, just because there's so many buttons on the controller and they don't really know what to do with them all when it comes to 2D. And I think it's good that there aren't that many 2D games for the system, because it kind of, you know, goes against everything that the system stood for, which is a huge push to 3D. So
Right on. Speaking of 2D and 3D, let's get really retro. It's one of our retro-est games and the last game of our show. This is Chapter 4, The Tower, from the game Logi Man, which came out on the NES in 1990, composed by Nobuyuki Shioda, Norio Nakagata, and Ryota Musha. And we're back. That was Chapter 4, The Tower, from the game Logi Man, released on the NES in 1990, composed by Nobuyuki Shioda, Norio Nakagata, and Ryota Musha. And this one was submitted by our dear friend Cameron Worma, who's been on our show before. Woo! He says...
That was the crowd.
Yay! So he says, one benefit of taking the submissions for this episode and providing a bonus track is that I can look at the submissions and pick a track to complement the list. Or rather, in this case, to round it off by supplying a track from a system that is conspicuously absent, the NES. So when I was a kid, my brother was a jerk. The NES was very much his, and I could only play it on rare occasion. He would get a new game from time to time, and I would watch, drooling as he played. Logi Man was one of the games he bought on a whim at the comic store up the street. I was enamored by it, though I probably only got a chance to play it once or twice and only briefly. Some years later, in the mid-90s, I picked up a loose copy at Funcoland, Funcoland, and finally got a chance to explore the game on my own with no mean big brother looming. I already knew I liked it, but playing it for real really sealed the deal for me. It's an oddball little platformer with some interesting gameplay mechanics. The main character is equipped with an upgradable spear which he can use to skewer enemies ahead, above, and below him, a gun that temporarily freezes its targets, allowing for precision spear kills, a handful of nifty ammo-based sub-weapons, and the ability to overcome gravity, which allows him to launch himself into the air at increasingly impressive heights. This mechanic really opens up the game vertically and adds an exploratory element uncommon to platformers of the time. Also, this game probably has the hardest final boss I've ever beaten in an NES game. As far as the music is concerned, it's not going to blow you away technically, but the composition quality is fantastic. The Chapter 4 theme is my favorite from the game, and a long-time favorite VGM track. It's a short loop, but the melody is wonderfully catchy, and the notes arpeggiating in the background fill out the track, adding a complementary complexity that makes my skin tingle. Many thanks to all four of you guys, Mike, Ed, Emily, and Josh, for inviting me to throw in a bonus track. I suppose it's sufficient recompense for the laborious slavitude that is the handling of track submissions. Seriously, thanks guys, you're like the Three Musketeers and D'Artagnan of VGM podcasting. You can decide who's D'Artagnan though, I couldn't possibly do any more work here. P.S. My brother and I are great friends now, I don't want to worry anyone.
Aww.
So thank you, Cam.
Alright, so who's D'Artagnan?
I'll be D'Artagnan.
Oh, that was
would.
easy.
Ta-da!
It's funny hearing Cam's testimonial, because Cam and I grew up in the same state in a close range in terms of, like, you know, town locations. The Funcoland that he is discussing is one that, or at least I believe it's one that I have huge big time nostalgia for, because it was replaced at Long John Silver's, so they had a dock with like a ramp that you could go up, like a wooden dock, and there were seagulls that would like fly over and just like land on the dock and land on these like giant, you know.
So it was like
poles.
Funcoland by the sea.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's pretty awesome though. Funko Sea. So I'm pretty sure that he and I went to the same Funko-Land. But if not, then he could correct me in the comments on Facebook or something. No.
There's like a Ninja Gaiden thing going on.
The birds just wanted bread.
That's such a funny experience. I know somebody on my retro gaming forum, I don't remember how we discovered this, but we discovered that we both went to summer vacations at the same spot in the state we grew up in, and we actually remember the same ice cream parlor because of the video game cabinet that was in it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Low G Man is a title that Cam has long recommended me, and I finally bit the bullet and bought it, and it's a pretty cool game. It's really difficult, like really brutal. I got up to, I think, maybe the third or fourth boss, and I think I gave up after a while because it's really difficult.
Yeah, you can attack in different, like 4 different directions.
Right, yeah. So it's a pretty neat game. I would recommend people check it out. So the composers for this, Nobuyuki Shioda, who I believe we've talked about before in the past, did a bunch of different games. Kickmaster is one of his standouts. Summer Carnival 92, Rekka, Not All's a Dick, and G.I. Joe The Atlantis Factor. Those are just 3 random games that they did. Norio Nakagata worked on a bunch of games, mainly as production, but did do some audio as well. Audio work by them. Isolated Warrior in 1991, Motos in 1985, who was the composer on. Low G Man, obviously. Zombie Nation in 1990. And Burai Fighter and Burai Fighter Deluxe, which is the same game, just Burai Fighter Deluxe is a port to the Game Boy. And the final composer, Ryota Musha, worked on Isolated Warrior and just Low G Man. Did sound is credited, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Shioda was probably the main lead composer on this particular game. He's got some mad skills, yo.
I was just going to say, regarding the song itself and the composition, I like the song, I like the composition, but this whole soundtrack, it always feels like the time signatures are off slightly, because I'll be listening to it and the main melody, or one of the main melodies, will be playing, and it just feels like it's slightly off. Like it feels like it's not lining up properly, almost as if it's like a beat behind where it should be. I don't know, that's weird.
I'm not that familiar with it, so I haven't really heard anything like that in it.
Do you feel like that with this song as well?
Yeah. This song in particular.
Really?
Yeah, feels off to me regarding the melody and the time signatures. I don't know. It feels like it's at points like there's a note that just gets stuck, and then it kind of continues, but it just feels like one or two of the notes just like hang at points, and it throws off the entire feeling of the songs.
Huh.
So, yeah.
I don't have that sensation. I like it. I think there might be some moments where maybe the arpeggio lingers on a chord in a sort of unexpected way, like at the end of a measure or something like that. But
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I think there's some delayed attack going on too.
But I think the hanging notes are okay.
Yeah, I really like this track. I've been trying to figure out all morning what track this reminds me of. There's some other video game tune that I feel very strongly during the last 2 measures right before it goes into the loop, and I can't figure out what it is, and it's making me crazy. So maybe in like 2 months, I'm gonna tweet at you guys a random game name and just know that that's what I'm talking about, is what this track reminds me of. I can't figure it out.
Well, just listen to it for an entire day. Just put it on loop.
As usual.
And eventually it'll come to you.
There you go.
Is it a Kirby tune? It's not a Kirby tune.
I like the sounds in this one, especially the sound on the arpeggio. It's really cool.
Yeah, the arpeggio definitely kind of takes the lead, I think, in between those other kind of synth melodies. It's pretty cool. It's not a lot like a lot of Shioda's other work. Like Summer Carnival 92 Rekka was very kind of like bold and techno and full of like
very different
sampled instruments and stuff on the sample channel, but this one really kind of feels more of like a traditional video game song.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our Video Game Music Jukebox collaboration episode. We want to thank Josh and Emily for hopping on board the PixelTunes Radio Castle Basement train.
Oh, thanks for having us.
No, thank you guys so much, and I know that these particular episodes are like a special time for you to share with your fans, so thanks for letting us come in and just hang out with you guys. And sorry if I was doing any mumbling early on. had to get into the
Well,
groove.
it was like what, 4 a.m. there or something like that.
But
you're on like 7 p.m. kitten time or something.
yeah, so I apologize to your fans for any of that precious airtime that I took. But thank you so much for letting us be here. It was so fun.
This is so much
We're
fun.
so glad
yeah.
we were able to.
So where can we find you guys?
We're all over the airwaves.
They're gonna say the universe. We're all over the universe.
Butterfly effect. No, but we are at the VGMJukebox.com.
That's it.
Yeah. Or you can follow us on Twitter at VGMJB, or you can find us on Facebook just look up the VGM Jukebox, I think, and then you'll find our group.
Yeah, it's facebook.com/the VGM Jukebox. And, iTunes, all the usual places. So if you guys listening to this show really like this format of having patron testimonials read and then having people talk about that, that's basically what the VGM Jukebox is. It's a listener request line for VGM, and we're in the business of preserving and sharing your memories and thoughts with like-minded folks. That's what we're after. So please, we would love it if you would contribute memories to us. So you can find us at that website, thevgmjukebox.com, and there's a little button on the page that says suggest a track, and that will bring you to a survey for suggesting tracks to us that go into our jukebox pile and may be played on a future episode.
Yeah, and PixelTunes fans might, hear a couple familiar voices or testimonials from your favorite hosts over there as well. I know Mike and I have both submitted a track or two to the VGM
thank you,
Jukebox.
guys.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
And I just did a little guest spot on your latest Patreon exclusive episode as well. So donate a little bit of cash, and you might hear me over on Haju's room, that was a really fun time. I had a great time doing that.
Yeah, you got to pay extra for Ed, I mean,
Premium content.
Yeah,
that's just how it
I
is.
have a premium. I have my own writer.
A super special thanks to Can of Worms for being our neutral party, gathering all these tracks together.
Yes, as well as all our submitters. We want to thank Alex Messenger, Nathan Daniels, aka Utopia Nemo, Matt Waller, Marlon from Mega Drive Profile, Dan Brooks, Rob Nichols, Joe Morolo, Zach, Cameron Chiles, George Philby, and Daniel Lawton, all for submitting tracks for our show. And like we said, if you did submit to this show and it didn't get in, we do apologize. This is already a long show to begin with, so we didn't want to go any longer than this. But your tracks will be brought home in a little doggy bag by Josh and Emily to be played on VGM Jukebox.
I think actually Haju might have already eaten them. I think
Excellent.
she was hungry from that battle, so they're already in her library.
Perfect.
Ready to be randomized on out.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Very cool.
We do also want to talk just a little bit about Retro World Expo. I know Emily will be joining us at the Expo.
Yes.
And
So
so
excited.
fans of both VGM Jukebox and also Rob Nichols and Purnell from Rhythm and Pixels will be joining us there as well. So that will be a grand old VGM podcast time.
Yep, that's of course in October, in like mid-October, so get your tickets now. I'm not signing any cheese though. No cheese, no pickles. I'm tired of doing it for you people.
Really? Would you really turn your fans down?
No, of course not. I'd sign some cheese and pickles. So you can check us out at facebook.com/groups/PixelTunesRadio, where you can join our wonderful group of people, of fans for PixelTunes Radio, and we can talk about video game music and video games. You can also check us out on Twitter. Our handle is @PixelTunesRadio. And then I've got a show on youtube.com/dongled, which is where you'll also be able to find all the episodes for PixelTunes Radio, in addition to Dude, You Haven't Played This Game, my video game review show, where I review games in depth and in an entertaining fashion.
Awesome. You can also check out my other podcast, Impulse Project, at www.impulseproject.info, where we talk about demo scene music and music from the tracking community. So lots of C64 and Amiga and Game Boy and NES tracks playing on that one.
That's right. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to do us a favor, go to iTunes and give us a rating, because that helps us with being able to attract more video game music fans and listeners, so that way we can share it with as many people as possible. So give us a rating, give us a review, tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like, and that way we can improve to make sure that we're the best show
ever.
possible.
Well, except for VGM Jukebox.
Well, yeah, and Pixelated Audio and, Rhythm
All
and
of our
Pixels
friends.
and all the other shows that we're fans of and friends with. So
Right on.
word.
All right, so we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Emily and Josh, thank you again for hanging out with us.
No, thank you.
Thanks again for having us. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.